you saying that I shouldn't read the blurb, so I have no idea what this film's about?
Yeah, I'd say never read the thing or just go in blind. Is obviously going to be better.
Is it a foreign language film?
It's French.
Oh yes, you said.
That's why I said like, would you be able to watch it without subtitles and stuff?
Yeah, I'll try it without subtitles. I think it could be quite cool. The woman on the front cover, she looks like she looks like an American actress, but I can't remember her name. She plays George Clooney's daughter in Descendants. Do you remember that film?
I've not seen that film.
Really?
I
thought I talked to you about it and you don't like it.
There's not in that picture, but in the film she does look a bit like Maisie Williams.
So I'm talking about. I'm going to find out her name. Shailene Woodley, the one from the Divergent series.
Yeah,
that's who she reminds me of.
All right. Okay, and the film we're talking about is Raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you started the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at that smooth transition.
Yeah, very nice.
So yeah, Raw's fucked. I hope you enjoy it.
Move on.
Yeah. Alright, let's move on to where we were actually going to start. Lego Batman. The Lego Batman movie, I think is its full title. Ethan, you've seen the Lego Batman movie. What did you think of it?
I thought it was quite a good film, to be honest. It was... I mean, we've already discussed this, and we think that the opening 10 minutes of the film is the best part of the film because it sets up the story. And it's... the part that will break out into... Did they break out into scene? It's been so long since I watched it.
Basically, the problem with the film is the first 10 minutes are so funny that the rest of the film just
Oh yeah,
falls
that
flat.
joke about studio executives at the beginning, that's really, really good.
It's sort of that thing, like, if a film can make you laugh before it starts, that's, like, already a good sign.
Yeah,
but yeah,
sure.
You're a fan of the Lego movie. Do you like that film?
Yeah, I like the Lego movie more than the Lego Batman movie, and I think the reason that is because of the voice cast. I think I preferred it in the Lego movie. They had so many really good actors in there, and the actors that they picked for each Lego character was just perfect. Like Will Arnett as Lego Batman, you just can't think of anyone else voicing him now.
Yeah.
It's the same with Chris Pratt. Oh, Chris Pratt's just perfect for a Lego
adaptation
of a film. He's just a child in a man's body. He's perfect for anything like that.
Alright. Speaking of Chris Pratt, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 came out this year.
Man Rappy's favourite film.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy. I saw it with him, in fact. I saw it with...
The first or the
Hang
second?
on.
Oh, you've seen the second one?
I saw the second
one.
one.
I didn't know that.
Did I watch it with you, in fact?
I don't think you did, no. What did you think of it?
I felt that the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had pretty much no substance. I didn't like it nearly as much as the first films did. It felt like a film that was just a bunch of scenes, but no real story, if you know what I mean. Like, there were some great scenes. The scene where Yondu escapes,
that's definitely
he's got his arrow following him around, killing everyone, was really, really well done. But I think most of the jokes fall flat on its face, and it was just a bit of a silly humour. Like, I mean, the scene where there's that alien woman who can predict what people are thinking just by touching them. It just wasn't necessary.
That character's a complete mistake. I think it's okay, but it's definitely the worst of all the Marvel films that came out. Because this is a very good year. Let's just...
Did Doctor Strange come out this year? Oh, that's a shame.
See, going into the year, I was well off Marvel films. I was like, you know what? I don't care about them. Like, but this year's brought me back. I'm like, actually, big franchise movies can be saved.
So what else has been better than in terms of Marvel films? Because you got Spider-Man Homecoming.
Before we move on from this one very quickly, there's a very good, about 40-minute review of this film by Lindsay Ellis.
I don't know. Is that a guy or a woman?
Woman. I'll send you, if you really want. You probably won't care about it. But it talks about how the film brings up a lot of great emotional sort of points, especially like relationships with like parents. Yeah. And then just never does anything with them.
I know. I think it's in my opinion, it's also a bit too easy having your parent as the villain of the story and having him start off as a relatable character that kind of draws in the main character of the film and kind of alienates all of the supporting characters. You know, like Kurt Russell does in the film. Well, and then have him become the bad guy, then have the main character choose between his friends or his family.
I think it was an interesting dynamic until he turned into a planet, which had to blow up.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with a lot of Marvel villains is they're just like big grey evil versions of the hero. And the one villain you can't say that for is Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, who is the best Marvel villain. And is probably
What's he like? I tell you what, hang on. Before we move on to Spider-Man Homecoming, I wanted to ask you, what did you think of the part in Guardians 2 when Rocket is trying to explain how the remote works for the bomb to Groot?
I mean, that just wasn't funny because I hate Rocket. He's one of the.
Do you hate Rocket?
He's a terrible.
That's Bradley Cooper.
I do know it's Bradley Cooper. It's still a terrible character. But Spider-Man Homecoming is really good because before they started it, the director, they all sat down in a room, and okay, so let's just say there's 20 people who are like higher ups who are making this film. They each had to come up with 5 iconic things you see in a Spider-Man film, and the rule was you're not allowed to include any of these things in this film. So you don't have the big scene where Spider-Man gets bitten by the spider or swinging down Manhattan. It just feels like what it is, and what it is it was originally just a vanilla teen movie, and they adapted the script to make a Spider-Man movie. So essentially, it's
quite clever.
It's basically Mean Girls meets the original Spider-Man.
Mean Girls,
exactly.
Especially if Rachel McAdams in it. So. Is she in?
Wait, no, but he's a mathlete. Seriously,
Oh, no way.
yeah.
Is it really?
And the villain is the biggest strength of the film. Michael Keaton is brilliant, and there's a great plot twist.
The founder.
Oh, thank God we haven't got this on that list.
Yeah.
But,
Does that come out this year?
I think it did come out this year. The McDonald's movie.
I want to see that at some point.
But yeah, what was I going to say? There's an incredible scene between, it's just Michael Keaton, not in a suit or not as the villain, just him like being himself, and he's one of the most sinister villains in any comic book film. Just like his performance is so good in that film,
Really?
and the plot twist sort of elevates that performance to her. It's really a good film.
Yeah, you kind of said it was basically just an 80s teen movie similar to The Breakfast Club, but Spider-Man's involved, and it's
Speaking of an 80s teen movie,
oh, fuck off right now. Can we just delay this one?
look at this brilliant transition. The fact that it is the highest grossing horror movie of all time, and you're not.
You are joking.
It is, and you're laughing. Says it all. I think it does draw the line between like horror and comedy, much like Get Out, which we'll probably move on to eventually.
I should have rewatched some of the highlights of this year to remind myself of what I didn't like and what I did like. But what I didn't like about this film was the fact that it tried to remind you of the fact that it was an 80s film by constantly mentioning really naff signature 80s things, like at some point that Jewish kid calls the ginger kid Molly Ringwald, and it's like that's just that's such an obvious 80s remark to make if that's what you're trying to go
I don't like the film It, but I really like Pennywise.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because having a villain who can literally enter from anywhere and become anything, and sort of be
shapeshifter,
being a manifestation of like children's fears, is genius.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And I also low key wanted Alexander Skarsgård, or whichever Skarsgård it was.
I think he is Alexander.
Yeah. To like get an Oscar nomination for like. I want someone to get an Oscar nomination for not an acting.
I hope Amy Adams gets an Oscar nomination for that film and not be even though she wasn't in it.
Oh yeah, Amy Adams wasn't in it.
Just the thought of her playing that character older makes me think, Jesus, that just deserves an Oscar.
But I definitely
because I think she was the highlight of the film.
Yeah.
I think if you take out Pennywise for a minute, out of the entire group of children, she was by far the best of them all, because I think most of them were just stereotypes of the Jewish character or the nerd. Or the fact that no one wants to play with.
But then I think that's the source material, isn't it? So
yeah, it is. And she actually had a bit more of an interesting thing going to her. The whole relationship with her father and her being, it's cool because you can tell that there's some sort of abusive thing going on, but it's not really entirely fully discussed, and it makes you wonder how much more there is to it. You know?
Yeah. But what I was trying to say about Pennywise is like physicality. I want sort of like a best actor one day to not just be someone doing like act, but like a real great physical performance.
Yeah, like Circus.
Like Circus in War for the Planet of the Apes.
Is that our next one?
Have you seen it?
No, I didn't. I had a lot of people come up to me at the time and ask me if I want to go see them, but I didn't really have any interest in them because I don't really like any of these films. I like the original Planet of the Apes film. It's one of my favourite sci-fi films, but
you don't like the new trilogy? I'm quite a big fan of it.
I didn't see. Hang on. I don't even know. Are we talking about War or Dawn right now?
We're talking about War.
Yeah, and Dawn came up before.
It was Rise. Rise, Dawn.
I saw Rise, and I sort of. I did like it, but you know how I feel about franchises, and I kind of wanted to watch something new, and what I was seeing was another film where it's monkeys fighting humans, and I'd already seen this before in about 6 more films that came out between the original one and the new trilogy. It is a trilogy that they've got.
It is a trilogy,
right now.
And I don't think they're making another one. I think they wrapped it up very nicely.
It's got a good cast though. Well, I don't think Gary Oldman was in this one, but he was in the one before it, wasn't he? And Gary Oldman just makes
the thing is, when you hear the actors interviewed in it, they don't just talk about how it's like a big franchise. They talk about it's a great script because they're really well made movies. They're the highest tier of sort of franchise films.
Yeah. Okay.
That's sort
All
of-
right. I will watch it at some point. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd quite like
It's
to
not bad, I
revisit
think.
the Gary Oldman because I have not seen that since it came out, so I can't.
Yeah. How long ago was that? How long do they have in between each film in the three? Do you know?
3 or 4 years. I don't know because the first one is one of those films I've accidentally seen like 5 times.
Yeah.
Like The Amazing Spider-Man, which is a rubbish film. I've seen it about 6 times. It's just always on.
Yeah. Amazing Spider-Man's much better than Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Which was shocking.
That is.
I mean, actually shocking.
Where do you want to go from here? I mean, I guess if you want to talk about films with incredible CGI, so much so you don't even notice it's CGI. Paddington too. I mean,
I
like,
did not expect that's what you were going to say. I thought you were going to say something like Geostorm, because you don't even notice half the CGI in that film.
I've not even seen Geostorm.
I want to watch it.
But yeah, you can't even notice that Paddington's like not a real bear. I mean, that is incredible.
So why is it better than the first one so much?
Alright, the first one is a sort of generic retelling of Paddington, isn't it? It's like, they find him in the station and Nicole Kidman, or is it Uma Thurman, who knows, is trying to steal him. But I don't know, it's a comedy in which, in the first 20 minutes, it establishes every joke that's going to run through it. So by the end of the film, you have about 7 jokes in a minute all paying off.
Yeah, yeah.
And also Hugh Grant.
You've already told me that's how you like comedy, and that's why you like the IT crowd so much, because they set up the joke at the beginning and they bring it back later on, and it's fantastic.
Hugh Grant is so good in it as he's as a failed actor who becomes like a criminal.
He's just playing himself then.
Yeah, I know, but he's really Florence Foster Jenkins. He's really good at being a bad actor.
The one with Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should watch that at some point. What is that? Is that based on a play?
I have no idea if it's based on a play. It's about a woman who couldn't sing but thought she could, and she kept paying to release all these like albums of her.
Okay.
She was a dreadful singer.
All right.
Where should we go from? We can go in. Should we go to Death Note?
Yes,
Should we-
Death Note, one
should we
of my
do-
favourite films of the year. I actually love this film.
I actually love this film, but
I think this film is my Revenge of the Sith, because
I
it's
see what
so
you mean.
shit, but there are so many funny moments in it that make you think, God, it's crazy how much you can take something that's brilliant and then put it through Hollywood and it comes out as a massive pile of shit, because that's exactly what the film is. It takes a fantastic TV show, honestly brilliant. I do love.
I've
the
never
Japanese.
seen it, so
You really should watch it. You should watch it. And what's great about the TV show that's not great about the film is the rivalry between L and Light, who's called Light
Turner.
Light Turner. I think he's called. It will come back to me what he's called in the TV show. But the rivalry between them is perfect, because you probably won't be a fan of this, but L is basically the anti-version of like they're pretty much polar opposites.
Yeah, which is
they do stuff for the exact same reason, except he does it for good ones, he does it for bad ones, and it's the rivalry is perfect because it's all about predicting what move the next move that the other person's going to make and trying to react to that as well as you possibly can. And in the film, it's terrible because they've got Light being played by a stupid American kid who's not nearly as smart as the original guy.
Much like episode 3, it felt like a Hayden Christensen
Oh,
performance.
it was awful.
It was
so awful.
Do you know who was brilliant?
And the guy, hang on, and the guy who plays Light from Get Out is the most. He's the most overacted performance of the entire
it's
film.
so good.
Everything is so overacted.
The thing is that they try to like shot for shot some of the anime, so some of his movement is just so because it's animated. Yeah, but I've got a lot of time for Willem Dafoe's performance as Rick. It was just like that is
playing Green Goblin from Spider-Man.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean Netflix I think had a good year. The next film on our list it is actually the next film on our list as well. So we're not jumping around all over the place.
Great.
It's the Meyerowitz stories. I think it's
Yes.
called And Other Tales, maybe. But that is probably one of the first, not including Bright, big budget.
But you're going to talk about
Netflix
Bright
movies.
not having seen it and our expectations for it.
No, because it's obviously going to be bad.
I mean, have you seen the trailer? Will Smith beats up a pixie or a fairy or God knows whatever it is. It looks amazing.
It seems like every year David Ayer is going to release a bad film with Will Smith in it that has a very good soundtrack. That's just what he does now.
That's so true.
But yeah,
I'll tell you really quickly what I've heard of this film.
All
It's
right.
Dustin Hoffman and Ben Stiller. I think Adam Sandler's in it. He's actually quite
Adam
good in the
Sandler's
film,
brilliant
isn't
in it. Yeah,
Yeah.
And Elizabeth Marvel, who plays
Oh, is that who plays Heather Dunbar?
Heather
in House of
Dunbar.
Cards?
Yeah, she's very
no,
good in it.
I've
Adam
heard.
Driver's in it for like 30 seconds. I mean,
why
like
isn't he in it more?
exactly the fact that they could just like bring out these great actors just to be
Yeah,
supporting
yeah.
characters.
So I heard somewhere the dialogue in this film is something spectacular because it's incredibly authentic and realistic. Because what they have is they don't have someone saying a line and so someone saying a line afterwards. It kind of jumbles up a little bit. It actually feels like a natural conversation.
It's probably one of the best family dynamics I've ever seen on camera because it's just. But I think you've got to stick with it. 'Cause for the first 20 minutes, you just get thrust into it. It does feel a little bit unbelievable. But it takes until like half an hour in when Ben Stiller comes into the film that it really sort of starts to.
And what's the storyline? Dustin Hoffman is a failure at his job, isn't he?
He's a bad artist, and you follow his 3 children, 2 of his children, and 1 very briefly, and they've been brought up in this elitist circle of like New York artists,
right,
where their dad's been a failure. So it's a lot of sort of, I don't know, there's a lot of talk about like failed marriages and divorce and and like there's a lot of resentment to the father figure who is like, he's not Daniel Playview. He's like Daniel Playview if he had all his teeth removed and he couldn't sort of bite you, you know. He's sort of like, he's passively aggressive towards them. He ignores them and neglects them. And
there are some scenes in the film where 2 characters, I think this happens in a scene with Dustin Hoffman and Ben Stiller, where they're having 2 completely different conversations because they're both trying to seek approval from one another.
That's one of the best.
And at the end they have like a really special connection because they finally come together. As in not of the film, of the actual scene. And it happens with Adam Sandler, I think.
Adam Sandler.
When they're walking down a corridor and they run up an elevator. Is it in a hospital, I think?
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. And I can't remember what happens in that scene either, but I've seen snippets of the film and it looks really good.
Adam Sandler is brilliant in that. Like.
Yeah, in fact, Adam Sandler, it annoys me with Adam Sandler because he's shown before this film that he has the ability to know the difference between good and bad, but consistently he makes bad films. And I'm talking about a film that Paul Thomas Anderson made. It's quite old now, called Punch Drunk Love. And he's really good in that. And you can tell that from his performance, he knows that his performance is good, and that therefore he must know what's bad. But for some reason after that, everything he makes is shit comedy after shit comedy, and then makes sequels to them, and then makes Netflix films that are basically the Magnificent Seven, but just terrible. Terry Crews is in it. Don't even get me started on that.
Well, my only real criticism of this film is that Adam Driver is wasted. And a film that doesn't waste Adam Driver is Star Wars: The Last Jedi, because he is the best thing in that film, comfortably.
He's very good in it. He's also, I think, or we can talk about Logan Lucky next because he's the highlight of the film in that as well, excluding maybe Daniel Craig, who's probably
why didn't we do Logan Lucky first? Because like I'm sure we have a lot to say about Star Wars.
Yeah.
So Logan Lucky was a real surprise because it's essentially just like a heist movie, but it's
a heist movie with an additional 30 minutes that wasn't really needed.
Yes,
because it's meant to be a film where you have a setup of the heist, and you just have the heist, and you know it's meant to have like a happy ending, and it does in the end of the film. But what it has, it tries to be something that it's not by having an FBI agent come in, played by Hilary Swank, and it's really lame and naff and completely unnecessary.
It goes on for
and it goes on for way much longer than it should.
20 minutes of that film could be cut, and it would be a far better film.
I
agree
with you.
It's one of those heist movies. When it starts, it's in perpetual motion, isn't it? It's like the heist, things are evolving.
It's one of the reasons why Ocean's 11 is so great because they have the setup of the heist, which isn't very long.
Same
they have the heist,
director,
which is the majority of the film. Yeah, and Steven Soderbergh, in fact.
Yeah.
And then at the end of Ocean's 11, they all get off happy, but you don't have an FBI agent coming in halfway through and saying, "Oh, I'm going to investigate for you for a bit. I'll talk to Seth MacFarlane and see what he says."
Oh, Seth, there are some questionable performances, especially from Seth MacFarlane. But Daniel Craig is so good.
He steals the show. Especially that scene. He's not in it, but when they have the distraction, the prison. And that whole Game of Thrones conversation they have is so funny.
Channing Tatum, I think, was quite good in that. What did you think he was as decently leading that?
Yes. I think Channing Tatum, who I never thought would have one, similarly to Jonah Hill, has had a bit of a reconnaissance. Well, I think he was in very bad films, and now he seems to be making really good films.
I think they had the same reconnaissance with the Jump Street films.
Yeah, I think so too. Because 21 Jump Street was really quite funny.
Do you know, if you get a great leading man like Channing Tatum, what you don't do is you don't have him in the film for 10 minutes. And put him in all the marketing, and then just him not being in the film, which is the case for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Which I think if you've watched the first Kingsman film and you just go straight into the second one, don't watch any trailer, don't hear anything about it, I think you'll enjoy it because there's some good twists and turns, you know. But the problem with Kingsman: The Golden Circle is, I think it might.
Pascal.
I think the fact that it is much like I thought Spider-Man Homecoming would be and ended up not being. There were so many trailers and so much marketing, it was impossible to avoid. So you went into the film having seen it. You'd seen the big taxi action set piece. You'd seen the final act. It also had this really weird message about legalising drugs and not legalising drugs.
How so?
Well, okay. I try to avoid spoilers, but the plot of the movie is essentially the big bad villain is going to kill everyone in the world unless the president legalises drugs.
Are you serious?
That's pretty much the plot of the movie.
That's more ridiculous than the first one. The first one was like mildly far-fetched.
And the big bad villain,
Mildly, rather.
yeah, the big bad villain is Julianne Moore, who's in another
What is she doing in this film?
another terrible film. Which
She used to make really good films. I
I said-
miss those films.
I said another terrible film, Kings of the Golden Circle. It passes the time. It is a quintessential 6 out of 10.
I should have seen that when it came out. I don't know why I didn't. I think there were just other things on at the time that I'd rather go see.
Other things like Suburbicon.
I think it might have been Suburbicon. Actually, no, it wasn't. Suburbicon, yeah.
So
Are we talking about that now?
Suburbicon
We
is
just completely missed out the Last Jedi.
yeah. We'll kind of come back to that.
Okay.
Should we wait for Tony and Joey? We could-
It's up to
But
you.
anyway,
Do you think we'd be able to structure this out for another hour and 12 minutes before we... talk about
probably
Last
not.
Jedi?
But we'll get to the Last
Let's go
Jedi.
there.
Anyway, Suburbicon is terrible. It's just I've not seen Fargo, but even I know this is the script that George Clooney adapted from the Coen Brothers was obviously Fargo.
He also brought in a script of his own that he'd been working, which is where the
Are you
where the
tell-
whole segregation story.
Are you telling me that Suburbicon was actually 2 films that George Clooney's put into one? Because the transition is seamless. It's as if every other scene is just a jarring tonal shift.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So I didn't hate Suburbicon. I quite liked it, but that's because I have a soft spot for the Coen Brothers. They can't do.
But it wasn't a
Wrong.
You could tell it wasn't one of their films.
Yeah, I know, but even if their name is on the project somewhere, I still will probably enjoy it, just because, not because necessarily it's a great film, but because I just love the Coen Brothers' style of filmmaking so much that it kind of reminds me when I see a storyline that basically resembles pretty much all their films, which is a kidnapping gone wrong, which is like pretty much 80% of his films, and yeah, including Fargo, which is a much better version of Suburbicon. Much better version of Suburbicon, in fact.
Right.
And we also had, you mentioned the tonal shift. It's completely ridiculous. There are 2 films going on where most of the film is the Matt Damon, Julianne Moore thing, but I actually want to see more of the segregation story.
Yeah, the problem is that the Matt Damon story just isn't as interesting.
No, not at all.
God.
And
It had it was setting itself up to be like some form, like it's called Suburbicon.
yeah,
Like it's this satire that doesn't do anything with it. And the best film of this year is a similar
I can see it right here on my
satire
list.
which does something with it, and that's Get Out, which is comfortably the best film this year.
Yeah, I agree with you with that one. Are we going to talk about that now, or are we going to move on to...
Let's definitely talk about
Yeah,
that.
Get Out's an excellent film by far. I've said this to you before as well. I think my favourite thing about Get Out is the fact that the storyline is so original, and it's such a complete reversal of racism and seeing the opposite race, so black people in this case, of being superior to the white race. And I think that works so well with the paranoia in the film that comes from the main character being constantly weirded out by a lot of different events, like a guy running up to him and turning at the last second. Very, very weird film.
I'm going to not say anything about this because I've written a 2,000-word essay, so if I start, I won't stop on Get Out. But it's one of those films you can watch 5 times. I mean, I think I've seen it 3.
Well, still miss a few things.
and still pick up on things.
Yeah.
Like the fact he was running is because we're in the tour of the house, Dean tells Chris that his grandfather he used to do sprinting. That's what he did.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was annoyed that he never beat Jesse Owens.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why he does the running. That's because it is his grand. You find out that's the grandfather.
I agree with that.
Basically, if you watch just the scene where Dean gives Chris a tour of the house, pretty much everything he tells him ends up either being like it foreshadows a future event or ends up becoming a plot point, and it really is intelligent.
There are some fantastic scenes as well. I think my favourite. I think the one that gave me the chills the most was the scene where he walks up the stairs and everyone downstairs goes completely quiet, and it's such a strange moment because for me that was the first point in the film where you can tell that something seriously bizarre is going on, and you still don't really know what, because they've been leading up. They've been slowly showing us more and more strange things happening, and then you have this one thing that there has to be something going on. There has to be. And also the scene where he gets hypnotized by his girlfriend's mother.
Yeah.
It's really, really good, and it reminds me of a film. I can't remember what it is. Oh, it reminds me of Trainspotting. Is what it reminds me of. In Trainspotting, there's a scene where he overdoses slightly, and his mind. There's sort of a transition where his head kind of goes backwards.
Yeah.
And the screen becomes like a
the
box.
The sound design when he falls into the sunken place is brilliant.
Yes.
And
you can see he's constantly falling and falling.
Yeah.
And he can't quite.
That's a really good
Can't quite
effect.
reach.
And that was on a $5 million budget, because Get
it's
Out
incredible.
is the most profitable film this year. What they did
How
is
much did it make back?
it grossed over $200 million.
Wow.
But they really sort of, the company Blumhouse Productions, they gave Jordan Peele, who's from a comic background, this opportunity, and he sort of paid them back. Because what Blumhouse do is they make low budget horror movies, because horror movies always do well.
They're normally bad as well, the low budget ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Happy Death Day.
Oh god, was that the same?
It was the same.
We talk about that now.
It's the same production.
Happy Death Day.
The same production
That's one of the
company.
funniest films I've seen this year, actually.
That's only-
and not intentionally. It's because of the amount of stupidity the film had. We have the ongoing joke about the chocolate milk girl, which is always funny.
Chocolate Milk
But
Girl.
I think the motivation for ruining someone's life is probably the worst I've ever heard in a film.
Oh yeah,
Because you're a bitch too.
the problem I think with the film is it doesn't market itself as a horror movie. I think it's definitely like, oh, this is Groundhog Day, but with a nice horror movie twist. And it's good. It should have been called Groundhog Slay. We all know. The final joke of the film is about Groundhog Day. As well,
Yes,
so come on. But the first night she gets killed is really sinister, and it's got an
Is
incredible.
that where she goes under the bridge?
Yeah, and that's an incredible jump scare
Yeah.
because of where the killer, sort of the slasher, sort of with the baby mask, comes from. And I think that's that. When I saw that, I was like, "Holy shit! This could be a genuinely good horror movie." And then it doesn't do that.
It just doesn't
After
do
the
that
first
at
two
all, no.
deaths, it just becomes a comedy.
It becomes a meme. It becomes a massive meme.
It
that
does.
film.
You know who directed that one? It was it's late work of Alfred Hitchcock. But yeah.
Kudos to this film though, because I did think that the chemistry between the two main characters was quite good. I did feel some semblance of reality between the two. You know, basically the protagonist of the story and the guy who's helping her. I did feel like naturally they did like each other, because often in many of horror films of a similar sort of stature, you get a main character and someone who's helping them, and the chemistry between them is awful, and you can't for the life of you figure out why someone would even be motivated to help this person in the first place.
Would you say it's a fair comment that the film struggles to draw the line
Oh,
between
yeah.
a horror and a comedy?
Yeah, exactly. It's very, but the film
it's-
is tonally out
yeah.
of whack completely.
Which
You can't really tell what it is.
I'd say it is the complete antithesis of Prevenge, which is a horror comedy, and I think just completely nails it.
Is that because they have the right balance of horror and the right balance of comedy?
Yeah,
Or is it because...
and like they have sort of, I think there's no moment in Happy Death Day where you can both be shocked and laugh. it's one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think Prevenge is really sort of is that it is black comedy in the truest sense, much like
Is that what we're talking about now? Prevenge? Have we moved on?
well, we're moving on very quickly
Okay.
to another black comedy, The Death of Stalin, which is probably one of the year's best films.
It's probably been my favourite comedy of this year, because I don't consider Get Out to be a comedy.
It's documentary.
Despite the fact that the Golden Globe said it nominated it for best comedy, there are some funny moments, but the funny moments mostly come from the scenes in Get Out where his friend is trying to
Rod.
put pieces
He's
together.
the comic relief.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely is. And Death of Stalin, there are so many funny parts.
I don't
You could expect that with an Armando Iannucci. film.
Much like sort of like, let's just say what's the film called of the thick of it?
In the Loop.
In the Loop, yeah. It's not a laugh riot. It's not a laugh a minute. It's sort of there's a lot of intelligent stuff there.
Yeah,
And the laughs usually come you get one every 4 or 5 minutes. But the joke will be incredible. It was sort of
And
very intelligent.
I know the film is based on real events, obviously, because Stalin died, and whether the film dramatises the events or not, I still think that it can be forgiven if a lot of it is fake, because it's about showing the incompetence in political parties and how they often mess up everything, and the public sees how they mess up, but Armando Iannucci shows us but the behind the scenes, what causes the mess up in the first place.
It
He does it so well because it really makes you wonder, Jesus, what's happening in Parliament at the moment? Why? Oh, God, it's so funny.
I think there was a film last year called Anthropoid, which had Cillian Murphy and maybe Jamie Bell.
I don't know the film.
And they were playing. It was a real life sort of political thriller, but they were playing. I can't remember. It was like an Eastern European country.
Yeah.
And they're both from Northern Ireland. And it was just them doing bad, maybe Czech accents. It's like, why did they not just keep their native tongue?
Yeah.
And that's what the Death of Star's brave enough to go. Like, it's funnier that they're not all doing bad Russian accents. I mean, Jason Isaacs steals it partially because of his voice and how.
Yeah, he's very good in the film. There's no denying that.
He turns up in the third act and just completely sort of steals the film, you could say.
Yeah, but they all are. Armando Iannucci's a great writer, and he does certainly increase your imagination when you watch his things, because you honestly do wonder what on earth happens behind closed doors, you know?
I think what he did is he took a part of history which isn't known that well
Yeah.
and sort of told that story.
Yeah, and even if it's complete bullshit, it's still hilarious to watch, so he gets away with it.
And it's a completely different tone. But another film that did that was Hidden Figures. Which, I mean, the title of Hidden Figures works in so many ways. The fact that you've seen the film. If you've seen the trailer, if you've seen the trailer, you've sort of seen the film.
But I haven't seen Sheldon Cooper enough.
Oh God, he's terrible.
Is he really?
Yeah, it's quite a well-made sort of. I mean, it's pandering to a certain type of audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important film, I think, in the fact that it's a story that needed to be told. I mean, like,
especially if it's true, which it is.
Yeah,
obviously.
and that Hidden Figures is that's why it's such a good title, because it's not only about working out the maths to make the fucking rockets fly. It's about these three incredible women whose stories hadn't been told before.
Exactly.
I think this it's a very easy comment to make, but in 2017, cinema definitely went more political.
Yes, I agree.
I think
with this film, Hidden Figures, it's strange because we talk about it being a 2017 film. But that, and along with Logan, I sort of imagine being a 2016 film because of the fact that they all came out around the time of the Oscars.
Yeah.
And they were looking at the films that had come out the year before that.
Well, films.
It's strange talking about these films now.
Films take two years to make, don't they?
Yeah.
So I think in 2018 to late 2018 we'll start getting the first films that started after Trump had been elected. But some films just feel like they were made like that. Like I think Detroit definitely feels like it was made.
Going back to Trump, in fact, that they're already making things related to his presidency. The most recent season of American Horror Story, which was god-awful, so much so that I stopped watching after about an episode, was all about Trump's presidency. I didn't watch enough of it to really know how it was related, but it was talking about how he got elected and main character of the story was so against him, and she was a supporter of Clinton, that her life started to completely turn upside down. I think what was going on, started having these hallucinations, and there's this redneck guy who lives somewhere away, and he tricks these Mexicans into beating him up, and he puts it on YouTube, and you know what's happening. It's not a very good show anymore.
But when Matthew Vaughn was doing his initial sort of casting brief for Kingsman 2, the big villain of Kingsman 2 is Julianne Moore, but the other big villain is the President of the United States, because what the President does is...
is it still Obama in this? They're
no,
saying that it is Obama.
It's a fictional president.
Oh, because in the first Kingsman film, you see the back of his head and you just assume it's Obama because he's black.
Okay, so it's a very right-wing fictional president who's not gonna legalise drugs because he wants all the people who've taken drugs to die. And when they were talking about the initial casting, they thought, wouldn't it be funny if we got Donald Trump to do it? This is before he ran for president. And I just think that's quite amazing, the fact that they considered him for the role. Very...
It's not the only thing that's predicted him to become president as well. Didn't The Simpsons do it a while back as well? And that's quite famous as well.
Well, The Simpsons is like, they predict everything. They predict the Fox-Disney sort of takeover very recently. So I'm a bit worried about the Fox-Disney takeover. Because
you're worried because it's basically saying how much more can Disney take.
Well, I'm a
bit...
bit...
end up taking over so many corporations. I'll own Apple one day.
I'm a bit worried because, like, having a rival company is always good. Like, I'm not a fan of the X-Men movies, but some of the stuff Fox started doing towards the end was amazing, and Logan.
You mean Logan? Yeah.
Logan
Sure
is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best aspect of Logan is the fact that the X-Men comics are a plot point.
Yeah.
And they actually address that, like, it didn't happen like this, and it sort of, it puts it on this, like, maybe all the previous superhero films you've been seeing, you're just seeing the comic book version of it. And Logan, this is the real version, this violence and the swearing and the sort of...
Yeah. Exactly. No, I completely understand that. I think what I loved about Logan was the fact that, I'm not a huge fan of superhero films because I think they're pretty much all the same, but this film isn't about superheroes.
Definitely not this year.
It kind of is, though. Oh, sorry, no.
This year.
Logan definitely isn't, for sure.
But this year, I think superhero film, like, we'll go on to Thor Ragnarok
Well, they've
soon.
come out of their own, for sure. They've diverged a bit because they've realised that actually they can't keep making the same film over and over
instead of
again.
getting studio
And
men
they've
in...
actually gone and drubbed into different genres, like... what would you say? Logan is a drama, right? Surely.
Yeah.
You got dramas. You've got proper ballsy comedies like Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that was probably the first one that
Thor
actually came out of the
Ragnarok,
shell.
it's just a Taika Waititi
Exactly.
film.
Yeah.
In space.
And Logan is just a film about a man who used to be a superhero, and we're following him. We're following the death of the X-Men.
I like how far they jump ahead. They literally jump ahead
Yeah.
so far ahead. It's almost a standalone film, and the fact that all the X-Men are dead, apart from Logan and...
One criticism of the film, though, is I think not all aspects of the storyline I didn't like. What I didn't like, though, was same with the girl again, the one who's actually
X-23.
X-23, where she came from. She was a government program. It was completely undercover. No one knew about it. They were experimenting on children. I think that's a bit too much of a cliche nowadays. Government programs that give people supernatural powers, even though I don't think they did. But it's too
very
generic.
end of Logan, where the sort of the kids did remind me a little bit of the end of the Last Jedi. I know this is like sort of spoilery, but in the fact that like there's a new generation, it's sort of the symbolic.
Can we not talk about that part on Last Jedi? Because it just ruins the film.
The fact it's a symbolic symbol of
Symbolic.
of like the old guard dying, and it's like this is for another generation now. We're sort of passing on the baton, which definitely Logan did very well.
Very well.
And it played it like, I know you're going to go, it's not a western. It literally has a western movie in it.
Yes.
Which ends up becoming a key
I think I
theme
have a
to the
problem
film.
saying that it had Western film style sort of traits.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with that. The saying that it's a Western film is ridiculous. It's like saying Star Wars is a space Western. I mean, who even says that?
It also had shit Brad Pitt in it from Narcos. You're a fan of Narcos, Ethan?
I love Narcos. It's one of my favourites.
There was a Narcos movie that came out this year, and it's called American Made. It is just Narcos the movie, but
Narcos meets Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Yeah, but with Tom Cruise, and I loved it because I hate the Wolf of Wall Street. I just think it gets everything wrong. It just gets that much like American Psycho nails yuppie culture.
Yeah.
I think it ends up advocating for it and celebrating a criminal.
No, exactly. You're right.
But American Made doesn't do that. It takes this character who is ridiculous and comes up with his own ridiculous stories. And the way the film is told is through a series of videotapes he leaves at the very end of the film to explain the story. So aspects are obviously exaggerated for dramatic purposes.
Yeah.
But you can very much believe that he exaggerated them because
of his character.
And his character is... Tom Cruise is perfect.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is so good for the role.
Tom Cruise is perfect at playing one thing, and that's himself.
Yeah.
He does that so well in pretty much most films that he's in. And especially in this one, from what I heard about, because I haven't yet seen it, like so many films on this list, he completely nails it. He's so good at playing himself.
It's definitely one of my favorites. It's one of the biggest surprises of the year.
Yeah.
The fact that it's one of those films that...
It's like quite an average, mediocre film, doesn't it? And you go watch it and you're pleasantly surprised.
Well, I said something about Lego Batman that it made me laugh before it started. This film does the same thing, where it's doing the Universal logo and it will fake out. And then it will sort of play its own older version of it.
Actually, I'll tell you what. Going back to Groundhog Slay, you know what was really cool about that? The fact that they showed the Universal logo and they repeated it about 3 times before they started playing the film. Do you remember that?
That was... I had completely forgotten about that.
You saying that right now just reminded me of it.
Another thing that did that was La La Land. You've seen the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's so forgettable that I don't really remember.
It does the old this is brought to you in Technicolor, because that's the way it's shot. Because La La Land is a 1950s film, but set in 2017, and it's definitely its strong point. The one big...
It's a bit unfair for me to say that the opening scene is bad though, because it isn't. It's really quite fantastic.
Well,
the fact that everything was done in one single take as well,
pretty much
is just so impressive.
If you don't like the first scene though, you're not going to like the film, because that's the sort of film it is.
I didn't. but I can still admire it for sure.
I mean, I really liked the film when I went to see it, and then I came out of it and I was like, okay, that was amazing.
Yeah.
But it's essentially it's like a rush. It's a sudden like you're like, oh, that was incredible. But then there's no depth to the film. It brings things up, like the aspects of like dreams and like the nature of Hollywood, and doesn't do anything with them.
He's a big fan of jazz, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
The main guy.
That's Jerry.
Jazz.
It's voiced by Jerry. No, it's not voiced by Jerry Seinfeld. But it's
Jerry Seinfeld.
it captures a period detail, much like the Battle of the Sexes or Battle of the
Much like
Sexes.
Suburbicon as well, that does so well to replicate the I think it's the 50s that it's
Yeah,
from, and
the
the whole picket
stop-
fence sort of environment.
The Battle of the Sexes does that, but the 70s, because it's shot on cameras from the 70s.
Tennis, yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like, and when you Battle of the Sexes, when you come to the tennis match, it is amazing. Even if I don't like tennis, but like I was completely invested.
And totally that.
I was completely invested in the film because of the way it sort of sets up that match.
Yeah.
It's built around
So
it.
actually, for that film is how much of the film is the actual tennis match? How much of the film is the building up to that tennis
About
match?
20 minutes is like the tennis match.
Oh, really? Most of it is everything before.
Yeah. It's basically everything before.
Sounds like reverse Frost Nixon. 5 minutes of build up and the whole film is just the interviews.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it's a really good sort of period piece. Have you seen it?
Sure. I was going to, yeah, but in the end I didn't. I think I went to go see Batman vs Super. No, I was going to say Justice League, but it wasn't even Justice League I saw. I think it was Suburbicon. Actually, someone said the Battle of the Sexes.
So you haven't seen Justice League?
No, not yet. I was going to go see it with a friend of mine, but they stopped playing it at Odeon, so I just.
Do you want my one-word review of Justice League?
Shit.
Don't.
Oh, don't. Okay.
There you go.
Good.
Let's move on from Justice League.
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm not good reviewing
You
Justice
don't
League.
talk about the only good line in the film about him being rich.
Yeah, but it was in the trailer, and I saw the trailer like 5 times. You know, they released about 17 minutes worth of trailers.
I know.
That is a mess of a film. But
So we are going to talk about it then.
I'm not going to talk about the film. I'm going to talk about the fact that after Batman v Superman, they essentially all but fired Zack Snyder. And I know it was a terrible film, but he in that film he'd set up a franchise that he was going to make, and he clearly has an eye for and he loves those characters. They should have just let him do what he wanted. I know because it would have.
We would end up with 100 minutes of slow motion though, Harry. That's an issue.
But this is a spoiler for Justice League. Who fucking cares?
I mean,
It's
we would have
terrible.
ended up with dances that have some sort of epic
that's-
battle
That's the worst film.
as its subtext. Which doesn't really make much sense, but who knows?
Do you remember? Have you seen Batman v Superman?
Yeah, I did see that.
Okay, there's a lot of flashbacks, and there's one which isn't okay. So there's a flashback where Batman's wearing a coat, and it's really dumb. Yeah. Okay, and he sees that Superman's like sort of taken over.
Yeah.
And then Flash comes back and says Lois is the key. Okay.
Wait, hang on. Flash does it.
Flash. Yeah, he goes through time and tells him that Lois
This
is the key.
shows just how much I remember from this really terrible film.
Okay, in Justice League, there's a tiny little bit where Superman turns bad. Okay, and then they manage to turn him back.
By mentioning Martha.
Lois Lane. They bring Lois because she was the key, but it doesn't even address that link. There was clearly in the 2 hour. I think he wanted to make it. It was going to be like 2 hour movies.
Yeah.
So there's about 4.5 hours of stuff and it ended up being cut to 2 hours. So what they spent about 15 to 20 minutes of Batman v Superman setting up had no payoff.
Yeah.
It just felt like the entire film. I can sum up the plot of the film, probably in like haiku.
I know.
It's basically like bad thing is coming, fight bad thing, beat bad thing. that is the plot, and it is shit.
In Batman vs Superman, they should have just got rid of Jesse Eisenberg completely because I think he's by far the worst thing about it.
Well, he comes back.
He's in it way too much.
He comes back in this one in the final post-credit scene, but I can't tell you I stuck around for that long.
What's wrong with you?
I didn't see it. I left.
Why did you watch the film though?
Because I like seeing car crashes. I like car crashes. Like Baby Driver. But that wasn't a car crash. Oh, car crash is in it, but it certainly wasn't a car crash.
Baby Driver next.
No, let's just bring it up and not mention it like we did with Detroit. Alright.
Detroit. Are we going to go back and talk about Detroit as well?
I've crossed it off the list now, so
Okay,
let's just keep moving.
done.
Baby Driver, go on.
I wish Daisy Ridley had been in Detroit. She would have made that film really good, I think.
Just because John Boyega was in it.
Yeah.
Right, for fuck's sake.
John Boyega. I just don't think he's a good actor.
He's quite good in Detroit. He's good. He plays naive really well. In that. Baby Driver, Ethan.
Baby Driver.
Brian, what do you think?
It's a fantastic film. It really is so good.
Do you accept that Edgar Wright now is an incredible director?
I can accept that he's a very good director. I wouldn't go as far as to say incredible,
made...
but I would go as far as to say that you can tell that he loves film so much from watching this. Like, he spent so much time making sure that every scene was as good as it could have been, and all of the car chase scenes were brilliantly choreographed, and I really admire and appreciate it.
I think the only real grievance I have with Baby Driver is the fact that the second act slows down a bit too much.
Really? You think
Yeah,
so?
yeah. Because I don't know.
It's funny you say that, because I think the opposite. I think it speeds up a bit too quickly for me, and it starts to go into some sort of Tarantino levels of ridiculous overkill, like when John Hamm comes back about 8 times in the film, and then he goes to prison, and then he comes out, and then they make a sequel to it. I mean, it's like, it's just not necessary.
That's the end. That's the very end of the film, though.
Yeah.
What I mean is the bit between when he does his last job, and he does the heist that goes wrong. That space in between is sort of. It's got good bits. It's got good moments when he becomes like a takeaway.
It's got a lot of good moments. I think the opening scene is probably the best scene of the film. And no. Is it? Well, my second favourite is, which is the scene in the diner.
No.
Where all 4 of the
foot chase.
Foot chase.
The foot chase.
What's the foot chase?
You know, well, who fucking cares about spoilers? So he kills Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
And then they drive for a bit and they crash the car. He gets out of the car and runs. And he ends up running, and then he ends up bumping into John Hamm again.
Yes,
that foot chase,
that is good.
That entire sequence, which is done to one song.
It is fantastic.
Is amazing.
I still think the opening scene, though, it captivates you right from the onset. The fact that the music that's playing, which is a not early 2000s song, it's actually 70s, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And the fact that it's so in time with every action that's happening in the scene is really well put together.
He does what he did in the Mint Royale Blue Song music video. Of just some getaway driver dancing to a song.
Isn't Darth Maul in that music video?
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Baby Driver's a great film. Just, if you haven't seen it, if you're listening to this, fucking watch it. It is brilliant. Brilliant film.
I don't know why I'm going to put this with Baby Driver, but the tone of it feels just very similar.
Can we talk about Baby Driver just a little bit more?
Yep. What just very quickly, what did you think I was going to link to Baby Driver?
I don't know. Say what you were going to say again one last time.
I don't know why it is. There's nothing about the cast or anything. It's just tonally, they feel like they fit together very well. I have no idea. Me and you both went to see them together, and I ended up seeing both of them the second
Alien
time.
Covenant?
Free Fire.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Jesus, what's wrong with me? Of course, Free Fire.
Alright, but talk about...
Okay, alright, we'll come on to Free Fire, because I love Free Fire. But, in terms of Baby Driver, you know what else is excellent? The part where they're about to rob the bank before everything goes to shit, and the woman comes walking down the street, and there's that amazing part where he gives her a signal, and she knows that something is up, but she doesn't know what is up, and it's done in slow motion, and it's just elongated out really nicely. It's fantastic.
I think the fact you said it's in slow motion, just because it wasn't in slow motion, but it felt like it.
Oh, was it not?
I'm pretty sure it's not.
Oh, well, maybe it wasn't, but yeah.
Yeah, because like it's so tense.
Yeah, you got everything right in that film, Edgar Wright. I think it's probably his best film to date. I know you really like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz as well.
Okay. No, this is way better.
Yeah?
Yeah. But there's just little moments, like at the very start of the movie, when John Bernthal gets in the car after doing the first heist, he points forward and Baby reverses.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. But when he kills Jamie Foxx points back and he drives forward to kill him. And just before he kills him, there's a 1 second shot of him turning the airbag off. It's just the little details, little minute sort of. It just works so well.
Music is such an integral part of that film as well.
Although
that film just wouldn't be the same
it's
without
one of those
music.
films that its cinematic release and its DVD release was caught in the middle of the Kevin Spacey allegations.
Ooh.
So it's sort of like it's a sort of film you look back on and you're like, I can't watch it. It's sort of. It's like American Beauty. It's just, you can never watch that film. You can never watch that film
you
ever
can't
again.
watch any Kevin Spacey film ever again because he always plays a weird creep that has some sort of...
They should have seen the sign, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I think they should have done. American Beauty.
I remember getting...
he was a massive creep in Seven, and even in The Usual Suspects, he was a fucking weirdo as well.
I got a text like, it doesn't surprise me that Kevin Spacey was secretly a gay paedophile.
Yeah. Sure. That makes sense.
But Free Fire.
Yeah, Baby Driver's excellent. Free Fire, sure.
Also-
Free Fire was also so good. I think
It's
that's probably my second favourite film.
It's
of
the
the year.
perfect Ethan O'Brien movie, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
It's an entire shootout.
They just take what's so great about Reservoir Dogs and just make it into an entire film, and it's got a fucking fantastic cast and brilliant
Really
dialogue.
interestingly, Ben Wheatley, when he's interviewed about it, he just says like, "I didn't even watch Reservoir. It wasn't inspired by it at all."
Oh no.
Yeah, which is mad when you think about it.
Yeah, I guess it is mad, and I don't believe that as well. Sorry.
The best thing about the entire film's a shootout. Is
Yeah.
the way it's mapped out. The fact that
I know.
he built the set on Minecraft to get the to get the geography of the building right. Because
I really want to watch that film right now. Can we just stop this podcast and just watch it? Have you got it?
I don't know. I know.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
I should probably get it on DVD.
Yeah, it's very hard to make a film that's set in one location for its entirety. And Hateful Eight, which I think came out last year, failed to do that because while Reservoir Dogs does it perfectly, Tarantino couldn't quite get what was so good about that film with the Hateful Eight, because the Hateful Eight is, well, first of all, it's 3 hours long, which is just completely ridiculous, but it's also set in the same room, and Free Fire does it masterfully. Like, he keeps the tension running, he keeps the pace running, he keeps the action running, and he keeps the action running, and everyone's fucking injured within like the first 10 minutes of the film. They're all lying down, shooting each other aimlessly.
Yeah,
and he still keeps his pace going. It's a really great film.
I think a film that really struggled. I mean, the best thing about that film is the fact it's set in one place. It's just one single event.
I know.
One film that really struggled was Fences, which is a play. We watch the film, you're like, this is a play. That's all it is.
It was adapted from a play as well, was that? It was adapted from a play as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
and it also had Denzel Washington and Viola Davis in it as well, right?
Because essentially what they did is they went, the play was so good, we need to sort of put it in a time capsule. We need to we can't record the play. We need to make a version of the play that can be watched forever. That's why they made the film.
Yeah.
But the film feels so, I mean, it just doesn't feel cinematic. It feels like you're sitting watching a play.
Sure.
And that's sort of, I think that's its biggest problem.
But surely, from what I heard, because again, I haven't seen this one, the acting was phenomenal.
Oh, of course it was.
Viola Davis, I mean, stole the show, right?
Yeah, of course it was incredible.
I mean, better than Denzel Washington, in fact, as well, yeah?
Yeah, well, his character he's such a well-written character. I mean, like, I think when it came over to the UK, Lenny Henry played that character, but like no one I couldn't see anyone else playing that character but Denzel Washington.
Lenny Henry's a comedian as well.
He can. I think he can act.
Can he do drama?
Yeah, he was in the third season of Broadchurch.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, it's quite good. I can't think of a link to another film, so I'm just gonna go to Alien Covenant.
Actually, I don't know why I sighed, because weirdly enough, I really thought this was a good film, and everyone else thought it was terrible.
I like it.
A Commode hates it, doesn't he?
Yeah, I like it within the context that it's a dumb prequel.
Yeah. I think what I liked a lot about it was the fact that it was so similar to the original Alien film, and what Alien has done before is they've kind of tried to further the plot or show you the backstory of the plot. And even though Alien Covenant did show the backstory of the plot, I think it had so much from what made Alien great, that you couldn't avoid thinking that it was a good film.
Right.
And all of the sequels to Alien tried to further the plot, and it's just terrible. And I know Covenant stayed away from that by just going back to the first film so much, and it just worked well for me.
I know if I say 2 words, you're just going to talk. It's not the 2 words you think about. I'm going to say Michael Fassbender.
Oh, damn it.
I mean, I could say wheat and fingering, but Ridley Scott's English. Come on, come on. There's no excuse for that.
Yeah,
Michael Fassbender is just multi-rolling, like playing 2 characters who are identical is a thing that's not rare in Hollywood, but I think it's rare to see it done as well as.
Yeah.
Fassbender.
I know you weren't a fan of it, but I thought the opening scene to Covenant was fantastic as well, and I think that's what really got me into it.
Franco stole the show, I think.
James Franco's very good in it. He's very good at playing a man on fire. I'll give him that. He's excellent.
It's a shame we've not seen The Disaster Artist, because I'm pretty sure he's in.
You thought it was too pretentious, didn't you, the opening scene? That was your issue with it, right?
Oh, yeah. It's a very pretentious film.
Yeah.
It's
sort of. But the opening scene reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey because of the setting and how it's so minimalistic, and how everything is quite simple, and you've got a very, 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 very limited colour palette.
Should we get our pretentious films out the way now?
Like what?
Like A Ghost Story?
Oh well, you're probably the only one talking about that. I'll probably have to sit down and sit down. I've already sat down. lie down and go to
well,
sleep. For
it's got all the trademarks. It's got an Academy Award-winning actor playing a lesser role.
Yeah.
Casey Affleck under a sheet. It's cyclical. There's very little dialogue. But it is cinema. That's the best thing about it. The fact that a lot of films, especially like films like Aaron Sorkin makes, they're just books. You can just read them and it'll be fine. But what this film does is like this would not work as anything but a film. And I think it's not afraid to have a 3-minute scene in which someone eats a pie and just complete silence. It's like I don't know. It tests your patience.
Who's the woman with him in that film?
Rooney Mara.
Oh, okay.
It definitely tests.
I thought it was a certain Naomi something.
No.
They're very similar actresses.
They look quite similar. It does test your patience, this film. But then the film is about time, and it's about the relationship between like life, death, and time, and like how much time we have, and how are we remembered. Because what happens is Casey Affleck dies within the first 10 minutes of the film, and you're watching his ghost. He watches like his widow wife, and then he's forced to stay in the house as she moves on and witness other people living in the house.
I can't believe this guy spends the entire movie under a blanket. So do we basically never see his face then?
You see his face in the first 10 minutes of the film, and he's under a blanket for the whole movie.
Well, how do you know it's for Casey Affleck? How do you know they haven't got James Earl Jones in under that? So?
You can sort of tell. I don't know. It's such a weird thing to say, but you can. It's sort of like the faint noises he makes, and like it is him, and you can tell. But Casey Affleck's under a sheet. The movie.
I really need to watch this film. Why did you watch it at the cinema?
I watched it in a independent cinema, so it didn't get released in like a big cinema.
Right.
But I'd heard great things about it. Another film which we did go and see in a big cinema, but is very pretentious, is Mother. Carl Ethan, talk to me.
So Mother was one of my favourite films of the year.
I don't know if it would be one of... It's one of the most interesting films I've ever seen.
It's an interesting film. It's very... It allows you no space to breathe. It's very, very in your face. You're constantly being pressured a lot of the time.
It literally was in Jennifer Lawrence's face.
Exactly.
About 60% of the film is a close-up.
I think the fact that you're following Jennifer Lawrence throughout the entire film is being told entirely from her perspective means that you sort of start to really feel invested in her character, and when people start ripping her house to shreds, you sort of feel like a piece of you is going away, like this is your house as well, and she's really good in the film.
A lot's been made of like the meaning of the film, but I think instead of like all the biblical allegories, one of the best things, it's one of the best visual representations of anxiety.
Yes, I agree with you
and
as
like
well.
Seeing it on the big screen it's quite some experience. Like I think it's an 18 for just the intensity alone.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. Going back to what you said about anxiety, I really relate to a character who feels like something's going on. She's very paranoid about something, but no one believes her, and her husband can't really connect to her in that way. The man.
Yeah.
Because it was woman and man, and then it was husband wife, man and woman, and man and woman were
mother. Yeah,
Michelle Pfeiffer
Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, that's right. God, she wasn't even wife. She was mother, of course, because that's the name of the film. Mother was. I really like the first half of the film because I think it sets up the second half of the film very nicely because it's building to something, and something needs to get out. You're not.
The
really
last
sure
half an hour of Mother is incredible.
And the last half an hour of Mother is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen on screen because the way it just shifts from thing to thing. And bits of the house are being chipped away left and right. It's crumbling to the ground. It's going all to shit. And Jennifer Lawrence starts off by trying to get everyone out of her house, but then by the end of it, she's fearing for her life because everyone is going completely mad. You've got Kristen Wiig shooting people left and right with a fucking LSAT, and you've got no idea what's happening, and you really, you almost feel for your own life because it's so in your face. There's no other way of putting it.
I think, but because of the suffocating nature and the intensity of it, it's too long. Because it's a 2-hour film, which would work far better as a sort of 90-minute film. Some of the scenes where it's just Jennifer Lawrence walks into a room, sees something mysterious, and then it's even more mysterious. I think if you cut some of that out, it works just as well.
Yeah, I sort of see what you mean.
Because then the end is even because if if you pick up the pace a little bit, moving towards the end, then I think that you'd get an even more extreme reaction.
I think that's why the end of the film was so shocking. I mean, that entire sequence was because the first half of the film, you think, oh, this is all it's going to be. This is the extent of the level of I don't know, the level of anxiety and the level of kind of in your face that you're going to get, and then out of nowhere, Javier Bardem finishes his poem or whatever it is, source of inspiration comes out,
that's
and
when it gets...
and suddenly it just picks up very, very quickly, and you're left almost breathless. I really like this film. I'll tell you what I didn't like though. The ending was shit. The twist was fucking terrible.
The problem is, it's
not even a fucking twist.
It works so much better if they leave it completely ambiguous.
Exactly.
But the shot at the first sort of 15 seconds of the film and the final sort of 30, 35 to 40 seconds of the film, if you cut that and leave it more ambiguous, because you can't be like, oh, I've worked out what mother means, because it is quite... The sort of dominant reading of the film is forced down your throat a bit. Yeah. Whereas I think if you leave it a little bit more ambiguous... Maybe, I don't know. I think
but you got to remember who's directed this film. He
directed
some sort of not religious, but kind of like a spiritual sort of
Old Testament-y.
I know what you mean. It has to be very biblical by the end of it. It's got to be sort of like Exodus or Genesis, that sort of thing. That's his sort of style.
And he's very polarizing. So casting Jennifer Lawrence was almost a mistake because the film didn't land well with audiences because of the fact that you go in. Do you want to see the new Jennifer Lawrence film? Apparently, the trailer makes it look like a horror film, and they go in for this.
It's not Joy. I think I'll be okay watching.
They go in for this I remember when we went to see it. Like when it finished, someone behind us was like, "That's the worst movie I've ever seen."
Wait, really?
Someone said that behind, very loud. Like someone was like, "That's the worst film I've ever seen." I'm like, I mean that just sums because it is so polarizing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, at the time when the film came out, I heard nothing but crap about it. No one liked the film. Not at all. I mean, I thought Commode was going to completely wreck the film, but he found it interesting, didn't he? Cool. And there were some good things about it, and I think that's what also made me go to watch it.
I think,
apart from the fact that you wanted me to watch it with you as well.
The only film that matches the level of intensity, and I know we've touched upon it and not talked about it, is Detroit, because it's almost a similar situation of they're stuck in this one place. These like 6 or 7 people, and like there's no way out. And Will Poulter is so good as the villain.
Yeah.
The problem with that film is the fact it's called Detroit. Catherine Bigelow. The original title was I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was the name of the hotel that the event happens in.
Is it a hotel? I thought it was just a large house.
Yeah, it was a hotel.
Oh, okay.
So if it was,
you mean where someone fires a gun? Yeah, it's a fake gun.
I think it's called the Algiers Motel.
Blank.
Yeah. So if it was just called Algiers, which was the original working title of the film, that makes sense. It's about the events of that night and briefly touching upon the wider context. The problem with the film is the first 20 minutes are setting up so you've got 20 unnecessary minutes setting up the context, which probably could have been given. It gives it all in a very interesting way using like animation, and it does this animation of like sort of slaves coming over and like the civil rights movement. It summarizes it all, and then has to show you it in like 2 or 3 like elongated scenes, which just feel a bit tacked on.
Okay.
And towards the end, it does the same thing. And I feel like without that, you have a more concise, more intense, more interesting film.
The
scale was a bit too much. I think if narrow the scale a bit, and it is a far more interesting film.
Well, what was the premise of the film? I mean, so the police come into this hotel, guns blazing, right?
It sets up the conflict in Detroit.
It turns into a riot, doesn't it?
Yeah, the riots in Detroit. And it's essentially, you follow this one, like, bent cop, Will Poulter.
Yeah.
And you also follow John Boyega, who's a sort of...
The moralist of the two.
Well, no, he's not his partner. He's just employed as a guard, because obviously shops are being raided. So he plays the role by brilliant.
I guess you could say he's a traitor.
Yeah, because
exactly,
he does play it with a brilliant sort of innocence, and he ends up sort of trying to help the people who are stuck in there. Anthony Mackie's in it because it's a Catherine Bigelow film, and he's very good in it. There are 1 or 2, because some of the like 7 or 8 people who are in the motel. One of the 3 or 4 of them are musicians. You have to follow them, so you get 1 or 2 like unnecessary musical numbers. So you get one or two unnecessary musical numbers between them. But
Wait, you mean like a musical then, or in that sort of
you
way?
get there are one or two. You see them performing one or two times, yeah. But that's in the context part of the film, which could easily be trimmed. There is. I'm not going to. I don't know if you'll ever see the film, but there is an incredible sort of breakdown in communication, which leads to one of like the most sort of shocking moments. And it's just the fallout of it feels a bit. I don't know. It's because it's a true story, so you don't know how much you can fictionalize. But
Yeah, sure.
it's got quite a downer ending, and I think it's a perfect film for 2017.
Yeah.
What should we do? Talking about downer films. Should we do Manchester by the Sea?
Oh, yeah. This one stayed with me for quite a while.
That is the
I
perfect.
think out of all the Oscar films of last year, this one definitely stayed with me more than any of them. It's such an upsetting story.
It's definitely the best portrayal of grief I think I've seen in a film.
I think so too.
Because
he has so much happened to him in his life that you think, God, how can this guy still exist? He's literally lost everything. He lost his children, his wife, his own brother, and now he wants to reconnect with his nephew, and it's just such a heartbreaking story. It really is.
I think most films, when there's like a tragedy, it just everything stops. But this film really represents how life goes on. Like the fact that it starts with the brother dying, and then he has to raise his son, and he has to go back to school. He has to live his normal life. But there's just like, and then there's an incredible moment where the son has a breakdown, just over like chicken, I think it is.
Falling out of the fridge.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's sort of
It's quite a funny scene. Actually.
and how like incompatible Casey Affleck's character is because of his past.
Yeah. For the longest time, he's completely unable to connect with his nephew.
It's such
Isn't it?
it's such a good performance.
It really is.
It's a really
is.
good performance.
You know what scene of the film really is traumatizing to watch? It's the scene where where he's in the police station.
Oh, the flashback.
And he takes the police cop's gun and he's about to
The
blow his own brains
the
out.
entire flashback bit is
Yes,
completely.
It is. God, what a good film that was. I think Olivia cried as well because I watched that with her at I think the Empire in High Wycombe.
Fair enough, because it is Jesus Christ. I mean, that film is quite something.
It's hard hitting. It's very hard hitting.
Okay, so something which has in terms of loss and like being set in a hospital and like having to, because there's an amazing scene in Manchester by the Sea in which they go to a hospital and it flashes back and you don't realise it's a flashback.
Yes, I remember that confusing me as well.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking
but in
about.
terms of like an entire film set in a hospital, pretty much, and is the Big Sick. I mean, that's the worst link I've come up with.
Before that film, I didn't really care about Casey Affleck that much. I mean, I knew that he was better than Ben Affleck, but I didn't think he was like a good actor or anything. But after watching that film, it completely changed my opinion of it. I mean, that and Towers. I mean, he's great in Towers.
Our next film is Live by Night. It's not Live by Night.
Oh, Live by Night. Did that come out this year?
I think it might have done very early on. But yeah, The Big Sick is it's a hospital comedy essentially. It's about a comedian, a real life story of how a comedian met his wife. The fact that they went on a few dates, they were going out for a bit, they broke up, and then a day or two after they broke up, she became very, very ill. So he had to go into hospital. He went into hospital, and because he was there, he had to put her in a medically induced coma because he had to sign the document because her parents hadn't arrived yet. And because of he put her in the coma, essentially, he feels like he has to stay with her, and he ends up connecting with the parents. And Holly Hunter's in it. She'll probably be nominated or win an Oscar for it.
Holly Hunter, she's
But-
a good actress.
Yeah, it's because it's a true story. and
Well,
it's,
she is a good actress. I might be confused to go with Helen Hunt though, because they don't look the same, but I can't remember which one's which. Is Holly Hunter the one who does the voice of the woman in The Incredibles?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, nice. She's in Batman vs Superman, right? She's the judge.
Oh, what a great character.
Yeah. With the jar as well. Do you remember that?
Jar of piss.
Jar of piss.
But yeah, because it's a real
What's it called? I've never heard of
The
this.
Big
film.
Sick. It's a real life comedian. So that sort of works in the film's favour. Just bear with me a second.
Sorry. It makes you think of The Big Short when you say that. That's a great film. Oh, thank you.
Because it's a real life comedian who's playing himself. You get a lot of great comedy out of it.
Is this an English film then?
It's American, yeah. It's an American film. So yeah,
I thought it might be foreign language for a second.
no, but it does
It's from Martha, isn't it? as well?
it's one of the few sort of big a few American films which talks about like the Asian experience in America, and there's a scene in which the main character sits down with the girlfriend's parents, and like the girlfriend's dad awkwardly brings up 9/11. It's like, so 9/11, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, It's
This reminds me of Get Out. I would have voted for him a third time if I could.
It's sort of that.
It's a bit worrying seeing Judd Apatow on the front cover though, because I don't really like the kind of films that he or she makes, because I'm actually not entirely sure if this guy is male or female. Is Judd Apatow male or woman? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Do you know who Judd Apatow is?
No.
Oh really? Well, he's the guy who's made this film supposedly that you've just put in front of me.
So I think isn't his name Camille?
Camille? No, I'm talking about the guy, the director of the film.
Oh, director of the film.
Yeah, he's a guy called Judd Apatow. He makes a lot of really boring B-rate comedies.
Oh, it's not boring. I don't think anyway. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Sure. What's next on the list then, Harry?
Don't know what.
How many have we got to do? Are we over half? Do you think?
Atomic Blonde. There you go.
Okay, Atomic Blonde.
What was Atomic Blonde about, Ethan?
Atomic Blonde was... I'm not really too sure, to be honest. There were a lot of twists in that film, and by the other bit, I didn't really know what the fuck was going on, but I think... So, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a guy who has a funny death in the film, and he's called Spyglass.
Yeah.
And that's all I remember of the film. And there's a fantastic scene in the stairs that's choreographed brilliantly.
It's... Okay, so the thing of the film is it's brilliantly stylised. It's great. It thinks it's smarter than it is.
It's excellent.
It's a really good, interesting 7 out of 10. And that fight scene is so good because it's directed by the stunt guy who did John Wick. John Wick 2 came out this year. And John Wick 2 is disappointing because it's less of an action movie and more of just a thriller, a crime movie. It tries to expand the world. The best bit about John Wick is it's a very dumb movie, but it hints at something more. And those like the currency, the hotel, that's all really interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas John Wick Chapter 2 spends such a long time expanding that world, it just feels a bit unnecessary. The action's obviously great, but the best thing, one of the best things, is it sets it up for a third film, in a way which will return to John Wick.
Does his dog die in the second one again as well? Does he get another dog and that one dies?
Essentially, someone's put a ridiculous bounty on his head. And so the third film is just going to be... The second one had a bounty on his head, which he ends up trying to redact. But in the third one, he's been expelled from the sort of this...
The underworld.
The hotel. And basically everyone's out to get him.
Okay.
So the third one is going to be some
See how he deals with that then. I mean, it's not going to end off that. They'll probably make a fucking prequel to that film or something.
It's going to end up...
a remake of that prequel. Blah, 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 blah.
Do you know what the best action scene in any film was this year?
I think it's Atomic Blonde, actually. Right? Is that what you're going to say? Have you got one better?
I've got one better. I've got the baby on the plane in Fast and Furious 8.
Oh, God.
Which is actually...
Can we talk about this for no more than a minute, please?
Yes.
It's terrible. Move on.
Alright. I think it is terrible, but it's terrible in a fun way. You've got the fastest car, slowest car on the island. Okay. You've got to earn that paycheck, you know. Exactly, you got the fact that someone reverses before jumping out of the car and it blows up. It's stupid, and it was fun, even if it was total shit.
Yeah, it was.
Stupid, fun, not total shit, Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, this film, you wanted me to watch this for quite a while, then I finally did.
Because I hate Thor so much. I hate those two films, because they're just dull.
Thor 1's alright.
No,
Thor 2 is pretty bad.
The only reason people like that film is because it's got the elf style of comedy, the fish out of water. Oh, I'm in Earth, but I don't know how society works. Sort of.
Oh, yeah.
That's why people like Thor. Thor Ragnarok is just a Taika Waititi film in space. And that's what it is. And it's you've not seen Hunt for the Water People yet.
No, I haven't. But I started watching
it.
What We Do in the Shadows, and I tend to finish that one because that was very funny from what I watched of it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Thor Ragnarok is very, very, very funny. It's I think it's a film that you hyped up too much, and I think if you'd said that it was alright, I think I would have liked it more.
Well,
and that's the problem sometimes with films. If you hype them up too much, then when you finally go see them, you're a bit disappointed or you're a bit let down.
The reason I like it, I like the comedy. I don't like the plot and the action and the villain. Although the way the villain is defeated is logical and behaves within the rules the film's established. But
Foundation's still there.
we can rebuild. That's so good. Another very good superhero movie that got blown way out of proportion of how good it was Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
Which was good. It was a very good film. It was.
I don't think I've seen a single superhero film this year apart from Thor 3, the third Thor film.
You've seen it, Logan. That doesn't even feel like it.
No, I'm sorry. I don't consider that as a superhero film because it's actually fucking great.
But Wonder Woman, is essentially a female remake of the Superman movie, the original Superman movie. It's got the same sort of tone. It's fun.
You mean the
Christopher
original,
Reeve?
original
Yeah,
Superman?
Christopher Reeve Superman film. That's where it draws most of its inspiration, and it's all the better for that.
Is Chris Pratt any good in it? Not Chris Pratt.
Chris Pine. He's being Chris Pine, basically.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
He's good.
and there's an incredible moment in Wonder Woman. It's probably, I know obviously everyone loves the gypsy music, but when she first displays her power, she walks across a trench. Okay, so this happens about halfway through the film. She walks across this trench, and what the film doesn't do is it doesn't go from this like nice twee film on Themyscira into this just full-on violent war film. It keeps the tone consistent. What does do that is Hacksaw Ridge, which again starts with this twee nice opening. Andrew Garfield's a sweet little southern boy. He's got married, and then Passion of the Christ meets like, oh god knows, the beginning of Saving Private Ryan begins.
I think that's appropriate. Yeah.
Although it was a good film. It was a very good film.
It was a good film when I was watching it, and I came out and realised that actually there wasn't really that great thing about it. Vince Vaughn. Oh, Vince Vaughn. I think you're getting me started on
Vince Vaughn. I forgot he was in
okay
there.
in it, but he doesn't do anything special. No one really is any special. For me, it was a very, very feel-good film, and it was a shallow attempt to get some Oscars from Mel Gibson. He just wanted to make an America Rules sort of film.
Another film with Mel Gibson was Daddy's Home 2.
Are we actually talking
No,
about
we're not talking about Daddy's Home 2.
Shame. I'd love to talk about Daddy's Home 1. I mean, that is a great film.
A feel-good war film, Their Finest, which
I haven't seen and I
You
don't
haven't heard
know
of.
anything about, actually.
Well, it's about them trying to make a film. It's a film about a film. It's a film about a woman who has to make a propaganda movie about Dunkirk. Well, we'll move on to Dunkirk after this because it seems like a good transition.
Sure.
Played by Joe Marston. And the best thing about the film is it...
John Marston, did you say?
John, we'll get on to John Marston next month. But I don't know, because it's not a good film. But there's definitely hints, because Bill Nye's in it. Bill Nye's doing the, I'm a washed up old actor sort of.
Oh, is it this sort of film then, is it?
Well, yeah, well, his bits could have, if he had more scenes, it could have been funnier.
Yeah.
The best, sort of, the funniest thing about it is the fact that they have to, the politics of making the film, they have to appeal to the Americans. So there's this guy who's like an all-in real American hero. He's he's handsome, he's brilliant, he's already in the UK. We need him in the film. So they big him up, and you have like 20 minutes of them writing the part and getting all excited. You see him on camera, and he just can't act. And it's one of the only laugh out loud moments in the film. But like this character is so good, and it's one of the only things that one of the only positive things I have to say about the film.
What's it called? Their Finest.
Their Finest.
Sure. Do you know whenabouts it came out?
March-ish, maybe March.
Oh, okay.
And it's about them making a film about Dunkirk.
Yeah.
But it's not Chris Nolan making a film about Dunkirk.
Which is, I'm assuming, much better.
Yeah, I'd say it's much better because it's
Dunkirk's a great film. It's extremely visceral. You feel like you're there watching it. Your heart's pounding throughout. It's a great film, and Chris Nolan steals it again with his brilliant use of messing around with the order of time in his film.
Yeah, I mean that's the most interesting aspect of the film.
Exactly.
But it's really good. Great performances by Cillian Murphy.
Michael Caine's brilliant in it as well.
Okay, Cillian Murphy, Mark Rylance is great in it, obviously. Harry Styles is very good in it.
Harry Styles is good in it. Yeah, I'll admit that.
Exactly.
I'll admit it.
Right. Okay, there are one or two films here we're just not going to talk about. So I saw Power Rangers. I forgot I'd seen it, so that says it all. The Breakfast Club meets... every film this year is just The Breakfast Club, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
They've always got them in detention meeting. Everyone's like, fucking hell. Film Stars Don't Lie in Liverpool.
You got the 50-year-old guy playing the teenager.
Anyway, Film Stars Don't Lie in Liverpool it's a very... I didn't think it was good.
Is Annette Bening in that?
Yes. It was definitely interesting. Like, I learned stuff going into it, but I don't think it's a very... Like, I don't know. It's got good scene it's very well edited, but I feel like it's not shot very well. It's the sort of thing that, like, it was obviously a memoir. You can tell it was a memoir.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a very interesting book, but I think the film maybe sort of delves into being a bit too exploitative, and the fact that this is a true story and this is a real relationship that happened, and it's like a real tragedy, and it's maybe sort of plays it at the net a bit too wide. Which another film based on a memoir that doesn't do that is Lion.
Yeah, Sly, and I heard nothing but good things about this.
The thing with Lion is, if you're pitching it, it must be the hardest pitch ever because it's Google Maps the movie, in the sense that it's about a boy who grew up in India and was adopted by an Australian family.
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's played by Dev Patel when he's older.
Or is it Uma Thurman?
But so the first half of the film is amazing because you're looking at this little boy surviving in India and it's incredible. But when he's older, he discovers Google Maps. He sees this food and he just remembers his previous life, which he'd shut off before, and he remembers his brother and he wants to go back and he wants to find it. So he spends so long with Google Maps trying to find his way home, which is the best bit about the film is the scale of this tiny boy in this like sort of I've not seen the Spielberg film.
He's meant
Christian
to be,
Bale,
he's meant to be very good, isn't it? The one who plays the younger version of Dev Patel.
Yeah,
it is Dev Patel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Dev Patel. So that is that.
It's something like his eyes, isn't there? Aren't his eyes really good at acting? I know that sounds ridiculous, but that is what I've heard.
You're talking about Tom Hardy, but yeah, it's really good. It's another Oscar. Should we just we'll finish off the Oscar film, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Jackie. It's about Jackie Kennedy.
I didn't fucking watch it. You say what you want about it. We'll move.
Natalie Portman plays Jackie Kennedy very well. Moving on. Moonlight.
Still not seen it.
You've not seen Moonlight?
I need to watch it, but it's still not on Sky yet, I don't think. Or it might be.
Well, Moonlight's an incredible film, but I think you definitely come out of it with what you take into it.
Yeah.
Like, I went into it with all the hype, and like in terms of can you connect to this character on pretty much every level, no. Because it's about poverty. I'm not poor, so like I've never personally experienced that. It's about like the black experience in America.
But surely,
I'm white. I'm not American.
Okay, so so you can't relate to them firsthand, but surely you can empathise with them, like understand the predicament.
Definitely. It's because it's a film set in 3 stages, very well made.
2 different parts in this.
I think the first 2 stages are very easy to empathise, but I think the second part in particular is phenomenal. It's when he's a teenager. When he's an adult, I think the film goes a bit beyond. I think it goes. I don't know. I don't think it's. I think it disappointed me at the end. But then I've spoken to people who say, "Oh, I loved it throughout." I think the end. I think the end's the strongest bit because some of the acting is great.
It's a beautiful film, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
There's some great performances in it.
Yeah.
Mahershala Ali's not in it.
And his mother, the drug addict, she's very good.
Naomi Harris is so good in it. Yeah, she is probably the best thing in the film. Right, so we've got 2 sci-fi films we can talk about forever, but I think we should wait for Tony and Johnny to talk about those.
Yeah, sure.
Blade Runner and Star Wars. So so we have 2 more films we've just got to tick off, and I couldn't fit them in. Oh, I could have fitted one of them in, but I didn't. Should we just do the odd one out?
Sure.
Mindhorn. You heard of it?
I do know of the film. Funny indie English comedy, yeah. Yeah,
it's Julian Barrett playing. He used to be a famous actor back in the day. Yeah. He's trying to restart his career. Very interesting. Russell Tovey is playing a serial killer who's obsessed with Mindhunter.
You're joking.
So they have to
obsessed with Mindhunter?
Yeah. No, not Mindhunter, Mindhorn.
Oh, God. When you said that, I thought that's a really great idea.
Mindhunter. Okay. But
it wasn't even out then, wasn't it?
They make this fictional TV series, Mindhorn, which like it looks like a British 80s like terrible action show.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a British version of Knight Rider. And he's got to become Mindhorn again to work with this the serial killer, who in the end turns out not to be a serial killer, and he sort of like, and then he ends up like becoming wanted. And it goes into Alan Partridge Alpha Papa levels of ridiculous sort of like overblown plot, but it's very funny because Russell Tovey's playing this kid who's just insane, who's obsessed with the show and thinks it's real, and his performance, and he thinks he's a bird as well, but his performance is great. Julian Barrett. There's one too many jokes of like, oh, my hair fell off, sort of. Oh yeah, I'm not as skinny as I used to be. But it's quite good.
Sure.
It's quite funny. Kong Skull Island.
Yeah. Didn't see this either.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. SLJ's meant to be.
Oh god, he's pantomime villain levels of that.
Apparently.
Well, apparently. I like certain aspects.
Brie Larson's meant to be good, right?
No. Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston are essentially the leads, and they're just so forgettable. The best things about the film is John Goodman's character is I think it's brilliant. Oh god, I can't remember.
Who plays the generic military man who wants to weaponize something or something?
That's Samuel Jackson.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Tom Hiddleston's the other guy.
Sort of film.
God, I can't remember his name. The other stepbrother, not Will Ferrell. This is good.
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly. There, he's in it, and he's the funniest thing in it. He's obviously great. I don't know. It feels like a film which has taken two things. It's taken the Vietnam War and King Kong and put them together. But enough of the director's own like flair has seeped into the film. Like it's not Peter Jackson's King Kong. It's not that bad.
Okay.
It's like it's pretty good. Right.
We're going to talk about. So I'm assuming the last two are Blade Runner and Star Wars, right?
Yeah. Do you know? I think we should talk about Blade Runner.
I think we should talk about what our 5 best of the films. Oh, hang on.
Wait.
Right. Do you want to talk about Blade Runner?
I think we should. I think we should talk about Blade Runner. Do our favourite films, and then we'll do Star Wars with them.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about Blade Runner then.
Blade Runner 2049. What did you think of Blade Runner 2049?
Blade Runner 2049 was an excellent film. I came out thinking that it was good, and a couple of days later, after thinking about it, I genuinely thought that it had everything that I wanted in the sequel. Took the original idea, developed it further, incorporated new characters that I actually care about and wanted to see them end happily. It had a lot of great moments of foreshadowing. It had a lot of fantastic moments of oh god, what was I going to say? I had this in my head just a second ago. It has a lot of great moments where there's something that's set up, and you don't hear about it for a very long time, and it comes back to play a big part in the end.
Yep.
Obviously, the massive twist of the movie, which I probably won't spoil.
Yeah, that's not.
No, there are many great things about it. I think in the article that I wrote for the newspaper, I talked about how this entire world, whether it's Blade Runner 2019, whether it's Los Angeles 2019, Los Angeles 2049, the world that he creates is excellent, and I love the idea that humans have become more out of touch with their reality and their creation. These replicants have basically sort of replaced them in a way. They feel more, they have more emotions, they're more capable of relating with each other. And humans are kind of these mind zombies now who just take orders and don't really care enough about life anymore. And it plays on that so well because you have Ryan Gosling, who's the main character.
Oh, he's so good.
He's set up at the replicant at the beginning of the film, but he's the most human person in the fucking film, and his commandant Robin Wright is kind of I mean don't get me wrong, Robin Wright plays the character very well, but she's kind of she's almost plastic. She doesn't give away a lot of her emotion. She's basically playing fucking Claire Underwood from House of Cards.
Yeah, you can see why she was.
She's kind of a bit of a pale imitation of someone who's really lively and fun and joyful, and that's her. And yeah, exactly. It's just that everyone's really great in the film.
Excellent. I came out feeling a bit, because the biggest problem with the film is it's almost a 3-hour movie. It's 2 hours 45. That it spends a very long time establishing a very interesting concept, and it's a very conceptual, brilliant film. I was so on board with where the direction it's going. The bait and switch left me feeling a little bit.
Yes.
This is another problem I'll get onto with Star Wars. The bait and switch let me down a little bit because I was so on board with. But that's no fault of the film. And when seeing it a second time, and I knew that was coming, you see because I thought it comes out of left field, but you see the little like hints it leaves.
Yeah.
It's almost like sort of like it's driving off, but it's leaving like a trail of breadcrumbs going the other way. And it then ends up when it swerves around. It's sort of you realise all along how.
Sure.
It's one of the few sequels, because like when you get a sequel right, it's with one that you've made one of the greatest films of all time.
Yes,
because it takes the original.
It's about uniting the people who love the original film and uniting the generation that you've got now watching them and bringing them together. And that's when you have.
The thing is, it takes the themes of Blade Runner and it does more with them. It takes the world and it expands it. It without like making the first film feel worse, which I guess you could say Covenant does. Covenant undermines Alien.
Exactly.
It makes Blade Runner feel more expansive. It really does feel like a sequel. Even the years in between, it just. That's why when Deckard showed up, he's in the trailers, it's not a spoiler, I felt the film lost a little bit of its edge, because it felt so. I know it's sort of. There were a few touches that references to the previous film. Yeah. It felt so original. The Deckard storyline. It's a little bit weaker than where it was going, but it's still brilliant. And the overall message of so many similarities with Star Wars. Like, you are not a hero. You're not special. Is essentially the message of the film.
Yeah.
But then he sort of in the end he proves he is special.
Yeah.
Agent K.
It's The world is incredibly extensive as well. Differently to the first film and the sequel, they go out beyond Los Angeles and they show you more of what the world's like. You got the crop irrigation part at the beginning of the film.
The fact that the opening shot
the wasteland, desert.
The opening shot is once again an eye looking out to this incredible.
Yeah.
Except, and again, well, you can't say what Deckard really is, but the fact that it feels like it's someone going, "Wow, look at like this is incredible." But it's not human. It's not human eye, is it?
No, not at all.
You can see it's like twitch.
Yeah,
it's something more human than human.
Exactly. More human than human. But yeah, that's what I liked. My issue with the first film actually wasn't really an issue because I was quite happy with this. But in the sequel, I wanted to see more of the world. I wanted to see what else had been ruined by, well, basically humans' evolution.
I think the most interesting way that society's gone is represented through Joy.
Oh, she's excellent. Yes.
Joy. Joy definitely represents a lot of like the best things about the film, I'd say. I was going to say
in fact, the part where I'll spoil it. The part where she dies is quite a heartbreaking part of the film as well.
It's not,
a little piece of me did die when she.
It's not when she dies though. It's when he sees the advertisement for her, and don't you remember?
Oh, you mean afterwards when she's died and he wants her
and
back?
it's just like. It's like a personalised...
Actually, I may have been asleep at that point.
Yeah, the end of the film.
I think I was asleep.
You need to watch it again because I don't. The end of the film completely just it's amazing.
Yes, I know. It was quite a what's what I'm looking for here? It was quite complacent on my part because immediately when I saw it was going in a direction that I didn't want it to go to, I just droned off.
You do need to.
I shouldn't have done that. I should have waited to see if
we need to watch. We'll watch it together one day on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Speaking of Blu-ray, I mean cinematography. Fucking obviously, Deacon's incredible. He's got to win the Oscar because it's just incredible. It looks stunning. It sounds quite. The thing that annoys me is it had three different people doing the soundtrack, and you can tell.
Oh really?
Yeah. I feel like you could tell. I think you have the guy that does.
I guess you have more of an ear for music scores, I think, than I do. Yeah. I don't really pay attention to it as much.
The score, like, I like the score. I like the fact when you see it in the cinema, it's loud. It's like Dunkirk. It's just
yes.
It really is like an extension of the movie. But the Blade Runner soundtrack is so good. It's just so like you can. I think Nerdwriter did a video on it. You can literally just listen to Blade Runner, and you get the feel of the world and everything. Yeah. Whereas I feel like at times it crosses into sort of generic music. It takes aspects of the original score, and certain like scenes.
Does it have the whole synthesizer effect to it? Because again, I can't really remember.
It's more overwhelming. Like towards the end, there's an action scene. You won't remember because you didn't like the end of the film, but with water, and the music is so sort of overwhelming, and it works so well for that moment. I feel like the score is probably it could if the score had been just one person's vision, you know, like one continue instead of like jumping around all the time, just sticking to it, it would be really, really impressive, like even more impressive. I think it's one of the year's best. Sure. What's your top 5?
It's one of the best sequels I've ever seen anyway, and that's probably why it would be in my top 5.
Very quickly, what's your top 5?
So I'd have Get Out at number 1.
Yep, same.
Free Fire 2. Oh, I noticed how you didn't say same.
Free Fire would probably be up there for me.
Baby Driver 3.
Baby Driver.
Blade Runner 4, and then I'd have Mother at 5.
Right.
But, interestingly enough, I think that if I rewatched Mother on my TV at home, it wouldn't have nearly the same effect that it did watching it in cinema. I think when you see a film at the cinema for the first time, which happened with me with Gravity, you do get the incredible effect that you do watching a film at the cinema with all the music booming around you. And when you watch it on a shitty little TV at home, you lose that effect. And I think that's probably what will happen with Mother, which is a shame.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, so I need to
What about yours?
So Get Out's definitely number 1.
Yeah.
I'd probably say Baby Driver number 2.
Raw?
No, not Raw. Raw is it's too fucked for me. It's way too fucked. I mean,
it sounds like my kind of fucking film. I'm actually gonna really like it.
I didn't touch upon the whole cannibalism metaphor in Raw. Is more about I think it represents
so a metaphor rather than an actual thing that we see.
Well, it is. It's the thing you see, but I think cannibalism represents like sexual hunger. I think it's a film about like coming of age, quite literally. It's sort of, and that's represented through this horrible act of cannibalism. It's a very good film, Raw. But anyway, number 2 was Baby Driver. Number 3, I'm probably gonna put Blade Runner. 4, Death of Stalin. It's really good.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I like Logan a lot.
Yeah,
I like La
Logan's
La
very
Land a
good.
lot. I like The Last Jedi a lot.
American Made.
Actually, I will put American Made on there just because not enough people saw American Made. And it definitely, even though it wasn't the greatest film ever made, it deserved more praise than it got.
Do you think Get Out will get any Oscars?
There's talk of Best Actor.
What for
Daniel Kaluuya, because the whole film is he is your vehicle through the film. He is brilliant in that. But
I hope his girlfriend's mother gets a supporting actress because
an original.
I'm just thinking about that hypnosis scene. It was so good.
Original screenplay it probably deserves
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think it was Catherine Keener who played his girlfriend's mum. Actually.
Right. So the only film we haven't talked about, even though we've touched upon that a lot, is The Last Jedi. So
And we're waiting for them, are we?
Yep. That's.
Should we pause this and then?
It's ruined the magic, Ethan.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to do the honours?
That's Snoke ship.
There we go. Alright, I feel like me and Ethan have magically been transported to Snoke ship because we're now next to Jonno.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It feels a bit later as well.
Mm.
But yeah, we've been talking about our favourite films of the year, and we saved Star Wars The Last Jedi for you. Unless you guys want to make any comments about any other films that you saw this year very quickly that you really enjoyed.
Tower
Tower
Heist.
Fuck! We both want
Films released in 2017.
What? You mean Tower Heist? What? Oh, no,
What films
no.
did we see?
No. The original version in Farsi came out in 2011, but the English dub version came out this year, which is what we did watch. So technically, it is a film from
Great.
2017.
I mean, that Farsi actor looked a lot like Ben Stiller.
I
they
know,
got the
I
actual
kinda
Ben
see what
Stiller
you're
to
talking
voice
about.
him. I mean, it's,
No, he just knows Farsi. It's really good.
knows Farsi.
Really impressive. Blade Runner 2049. What a
Yeah,
banger.
Right,
we talked. We did. We saved that one for
Doesn't
quite
have
late.
Snoke ship, but I mean, it's good.
Yeah,
Doesn't have Snoke's shit, but it has Joy.
that's close enough.
You know what also has joy? Me, when I watched Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, because
You got to see Jedi in like the power of the Last Jedi.
because it's really good. There's the bits where cool things happen.
It's got the bit where Laura Dern blows up. It's really cool.
So many cool.
Space Laura Dern.
That is the amazing moment. She is Space Laura Dern. now.
I'm glad that I was what you remembered of that. It reminded you guys. And was
Yeah.
like, actually, that's pretty
that
fucking
is
incredible.
one of the
No,
most
that's-
heart-stopping moments in like any sort of.
It's the best. It has a lot of interesting. Because I read an article the other day which just like goes into a lot of the nerdy Star Wars stuff about how that completely questions how everything works. Because something I didn't realise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's something
a
this
lot of
article
stuff
points
about
out.
that.
It's like as a start thing. It's just
Right.
like the scene was too good to like actually question on that thing. But
This film obviously was brilliant for a number of reasons, but the best thing about it is sort of the comment on like the role of a hero, and Luke Skywalker is the best thing in this film, and his journey about like in the end he gets to be the myth Luke Skywalker one last time, even though he's not there because obviously he's not going to be there. Like
and somehow that news spreads to children on a planet, even
Yeah.
though there was no way they could know about that.
yeah, but that's the thing. It's the myth Luke Skywalker, and like that's brilliant. I love it. What a great film, and also parallel to that, but you got Poe Dameron, who was you think as the symbolic sort of Han Solo character. Everything he does is detrimental to the survival of the Resistance. And the starting war scene, I mean, like the shot where Leia sees all the people that died. I mean, like that just like it's one of the like, few films like big budget like CGI sort of where you feel every loss. Well,
In fact,
It feels like a film where the heroes aren't automatically going to win, where it feels like there's something at stake
it's
here.
a rehash of Empire.
I wasn't going to say that, but because it was the second one, it did feel like it wasn't going to have like a really happy
there is a
ending.
lot more Jedi than Empire, I think, in that, especially like in like the whole Snoke ship section of the film is just Jedi. The scene in which Rey is going up and she's talking about turning Kylo Ren while that is straight from Return of the Jedi.
I did like the opening part of the film where the bombs are about to fall onto
the Dreadnought.
Onto the Dreadnought. Thank you.
Which
and
is
you got that
firing on the
character.
base.
And very very. You got that character. We don't really know what role she's going to play in the in the rest of the film. And then her sister comes along and she actually plays a really integral part of the plot. It's a very, very nice foreshadowing.
You find out when you're just like...
It's a mind-blowing moment where you realise, like, in the Star Wars universe, that these, like, background characters that die have families who then have to mourn them. Because that's something
Porkin's wife is gutted.
I know, that's Porkin's wife. Because even if we look at it, like, Luke is basically the people who have raised him get killed, and he's just like... Oh.
But Luke Skywalker is a psychopath. He shoots animals for fun and shows no remorse blowing up like a space station with like millions of people on board.
The weird thing is,
he's a psychopath.
He's the son of Darth Vader. Yippee!
Exactly.
Ben Kenobi dies, and he's just like, no. But I mean,
Master Yoda, you
no.
can't die.
He's not even like no. He's just like Ben. I can't believe Ben's dead.
To be fair, the thing about whenever a Jedi dies,
they're not really.
It's not really a death. Yeah, it's just like they get to go to space heaven, which is like way better than actual.
I know
heaven.
it's pure fan service, but the bit with Yoda was so good.
It's
when they're talking about because it's like again with like the Luke Skywalker feels like he's messed up.
But how can you be sure that it's not Yaddle? Okay, I thought I noticed that youthful top knot. You know,
if you're a fan of like the scenes with Yoda and Luke and Empire are brilliant. Like once again that they're sort of connected. He feels like he's failed Kylo Ren, much like the way Yoda feels like the Jedi Order failed with Anakin, and it's sort of that just the conversation. I think a lot of the conversations that are had between Luke and just anyone, especially like his lessons with Rey, are really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
everything you just said was wrong. I butchered that quote, but it's
like
really
it does interesting.
That sentence was wrong.
Yeah, it's really
it does
cool.
interesting things with the Force. It takes the franchise forward. It's not a rehash. It's brave. It's brilliant. It's really good, and it's so much better than the Force Awakens, which is just it's just
Force Reloaded.
Yeah, the Force Reloaded, which is just Episode 4 with more jokes.
I think 8 does I love it so much because it's a collection of really cool things like that. Like people hate on the Canto Bight like detour, but for me, like when I go back to it and just think of it, that's not the thing that sticks in my head. It's the positives are just there. So much of just the cool fight with Kylo and
that's why
Rey.
Oh yeah, obviously that's that.
That's why I think I like this film and think it is a great film, is because I just forget all the bits that I didn't like and then just like rewrite in my head what happened, what I would have liked to happen instead, and just have that.
I mean, do you remember the bit in Empire Strikes Back where they almost get eaten by a big piranha? No, you don't, because it's shit. But no one talks about that bit, do they? They don't talk about the bit where Yoda has a fight over a little light. You just don't remember these little details.
Yoda steals some food.
They're all up here.
He feels like he fights over R2 with a little light. It's well cute.
I mean, one of the slight problems, one of the bits that I don't like is the sort of fairly massive pivotal moment in the film that then just really isn't.
What, the Luke bit?
Leia.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think that scene's so cool.
The Luke scene is
I think it
might be one of my favourite Star Wars scenes. Like, it's so cool.
Oh man, the two incredible Luke moments of both no line said, of just the shoulder flick and the wink to C-3PO. How can the film not be a perfection based on only having those two scenes? It's incredible.
It's hard for me to say this, but I have grown out of Star Wars a little bit. But there are always some parts of the films that I love and really make me think, Jesus, that's amazing. And I think my favourite part of the actual film really is when R2-D2 plays that message back to Luke.
Yeah.
The one that he sent to Leia, because
Blade
it's
Runner 2049.
It is. It's an excellent move, and it's so easy for R2-D2 to make, because you need that moment where Luke realises that he does have to train Rey, and that is the perfect way to do it. And it makes you think, God, that is a great
Mark
moment.
Hamill's voice when he sees R2-D2, he is like that fucking like 20-year-old like on that planet again, isn't he?
It's some great acting.
I can understand why people love Star Wars. I honestly do, and I love Star Wars myself. But I
I just don't enjoy the films as much as I used to.
Yeah.
I still think it's a really good film. Don't get me wrong.
And that is 100% what the last shot of the film's about. It's like these aren't your films anymore.
Exactly.
There's a new generation of kids that are going to grow up and love these stories. So move on.
Should have died. Sorry.
I mean, I think a lot of the Leia should have died is definitely influenced by
Carrie Fisher's death.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I will say that's unfair
And-
comment on the film and to Carrie.
And also, Princess Leia has so does like if Carrie Fisher had been alive, she would have been top billing in episode 9 because she is the Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know how they're gonna.
In a way, I sort of wish she had died while making the film because then she could have died at that moment then. And I know, I know, that we've argued about this as well, but I think that the film would have been much better if she died then, because at that point I was already droning off a little bit, and I needed something to pique my interest. And when I see Leia is dead, well,
They're all
quote,
dead.
dead.
Admiral Akbar. All of them.
I pointed that out, didn't I?
Yes.
Yes.
Someone made a good comment that Admiral Akbar definitely should have been the one that Laura downed.
yeah, I think
Because
The ship he's on is called the Radis.
oh my god,
Named after General Radis.
But
And it's
like-
because Admiral Akbar was like, fellow Mon Calamari, saved the day.
but like he needed something to do. Like, if he'd have died like by doing that would have been quite cool. And also like the bit where Poe Dameron's like, oh, we're going to name the new leader of the Resistance. This random character you've never met before.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I needed something to wake me up a little bit more, and
That's because
Leia
you watched
dying.
it at like 1 o'clock.
No.
It was the midnight screening.
It doesn't matter if I watched it at midday. I was already losing interest in the film.
How many?
And I
Of,
think Leia dying would have really brought me back into it because it wasn't something that I would have expected. It wasn't predictable. It would have been very
And it would
ballsy.
have been so well handled if she had just, it's that moment where she's like contemplating it, realises it's about to happen basically, and then goes
Yeah.
flying out.
Exactly.
And then have that shot.
Because she knows she can vision Kylo Ren hesitating, and it's an excellent moment.
And then you have that shot of her just in space, but without her then crudely and like almost cheesily going
I mean,
off to the side.
I feel like the Force
thing with her
using
and
it.
Kylo Ren is that was in the trailer, and they wouldn't have put the fact that that's in the trailer. A lot of people are like, oh, does Kylo Ren kill? And people are like that's trailer spoils too much. And the fact that they show that and then it ends up being 2 other like, so that they obviously they weren't going to. But if she'd have died there, then people are like,
And
oh, that's been spoiled.
what I didn't
The marketing.
anticipate so early on in the film was the hesitation in Kylo Ren, and the fact that I saw it was
Adam
like,
Driver is
oh,
so
actually,
good.
He's an excellent actor. He's so good.
That scene
And-
where
and-
he's weirdly topless in the shower, and he's got these really high-waisted pants.
and
Is he
he's,
hot? Is he not hot? Who knows?
he's better than General Hux because
What an understatement! He is better than General
I know,
Hux.
but I'm gonna explain to
Six-dimensional,
you
like
why.
flawed yet like really realised
He's better
character.
than the
He's
pasty
better
guy.
than Space Tommy Robinson.
Okay, well done. Well, Space
Oh,
Tommy
good
Robinson. You mean
different one.
Space Donald Gleason?
Space
right?
Jimmy Smits.
No, I mean Space because he's just a space alright guy, isn't
Okay. Yeah, all right. But Kylo Ren has that passion, that fury within him, whereas General Hux is just way too exaggerated and over dramatic, and
That's what Star Wars
he
is.
just comes across really naff when he's like, I mean, just
He's
some
meant
of
to
the
be
things
naff.
he says in
he? Yeah, that's
that
the
film.
point.
I mean, he's so fake in that film, and I know you need a bit of power and emotion in your in a Star Wars film. And he gets that in The Force Awakens where he's delivering that speech. I think he actually nails that pretty well because he's got the right amount
Well,
of
Hux
like.
is comic relief in this one, whereas in the last one he was
Yeah.
a villain.
Yeah,
I want him to be a threat to Kylo Ren, because at the moment it looks like he's headed to Kylo Ren being the leader, and it will be so much more interesting if Hux is this like credible threat to his rule.
Yeah. I agree because at the moment it just looks like he's going to be completely
Right
submissive.
now,
to
Kylo is
Kylo
doing
Ren.
He's
the
the
John
one who
Marston thing of
orders
force
the army.
choking or threatening anyone that gets in his way,
Donald
but
Trump.
it's very cooler. Donald Trump,
But,
force-sensitive president. Of the
there's
United
a really
States of
good. I
America.
can't remember where it's written, but someone talking about how it's just a visual aspect. Adam Driver looks both young and old at the same time. He's sort of like he looks like innocent and youthful, but he also looks like he sort of lived. He's so perfect for that role, and he coming from a military background. He's got that sort of
And
coldness.
I wasn't a big fan of him in The Force Awakens, and I have no idea why.
Oh, he was
because he was
brilliant,
fantastic
yeah.
in
No,
it
he was-
as well.
he was-
I'm not too
yeah.
sure where I
the fact
thought
that the villain of this franchise is literally like, I want to be Darth Vader, like Darth Vader wannabe.
That's such a good
It's such
Yeah.
it's such
tie into the themes of this
and
film as well.
The best moment of the last one was when he took off his mask and he was just a regular guy. And
Yeah.
he was literally
He wasn't Jar Jar.
He was trying to be someone else, and
He's
that's
just a child.
And
with
it's
a
like, he
mask.
smashes the mask in
Yeah,
this one.
in
It's,
this-
I know
Yeah.
his little temper tantrums actually work with his characters, don't they? I mean, when he just
Yeah.
destroys something,
Oh.
it's like actually
There were, like-
I can that
and
makes
the
sense.
moment where he screams traitor at Finn as well.
Traitor!
Because Finn's embarrassed him, and like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, Finn's a bit underused in this. Like,
No, John Boyega's just not really that great in my opinion. I like Daisy Ridley.
but
She's
John Boyega
fantastic.
was so good in the last one. Like, he was so good in the last one.
Yeah.
Like, him and Harrison Ford's chemistry was like.
Alright,
the most-
so it's
I think
he's
the
not
new-
bad,
the
but
new
I just kind of
three
feel like he's too
is
much of a
really
side
good.
character. I don't really want him to be a main character, to be
And
honest.
Poe Dameron.
I like the
He's a
girl
bit
more
too
than him in
perfect,
that film.
isn't
What's
Yeah,
what's
but
she
he just
called?
spent this entire film
Do you
fucking
know the
up.
name of the
Rose.
girl? Rose, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
know.
Rose was better than John Boyega, and I can't even believe that happened. Rose is actually pretty cool.
Rose started the film, and I was like, oh no, they're doing the Flash thing, just
You-
making a really nerdy, awkward character, but not doing it well. And then by the end of the film, I'm like, oh no, actually no, she's
Rose-
she really sold me on
Rose
this,
had had-
this
If
character.
Rose had a Benicio del Toro skill set, it would have given her more to do in the plot, and it would have cut
What was
out.
I about to say? You know who I cared more about? Who was a massive dick in the film than John Boyega? Benicio del Toro. I actually cared about Benicio del Toro.
I
What
did-
was
I
it?
did
John
not.
Do you know what
Boyega?
his name is? That character's name.
I think it's
I
DJ,
mean-
isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what it stands for?
What, disc jockey?
No.
Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro.
It's don't join.
Four finger friend.
It's got
Frankie's Four.
it's
Stands for
his
Dom Job.
mantra. It's
quite
his mantra, which is don't join, and that's what he's known
Actually,
as. He's known
He,
as
he,
don't join.
that would be
DJ.
FFF, wouldn't it? Frankie Four Fingers.
When are they going to bring back Billy D. Williams?
Oh.
They should. Oh, come on.
When are they going to bring back
There's
Colin
got to be a
Trevorrow?
moment where like Ray's like on like bargaining with someone, and you just hear this was never part of our arrangement, and he comes in.
I have
Oh, no,
altered
there
the
should
deal.
be-
Pray I don't alter it any
There should be
further.
a scene with the Resistance where they're just like they're at a meeting, and then just like from the shadows steps forward. It's Lando Calrissian, and then he says nothing, and then just the film moves on.
Do the Jimmy Smits thing.
Yeah.
Or like the Star Wars people like swoops as you see Jimmy Smith step forward. Oh, I love Jimmy Smith.
I can't wait to see the next Batman film where Harvey Dent is black again. That's going to be amazing.
It's so good. You know,
Yeah.
the Billy D. Williams, Tommy Lee Jones, with no explanation.
It's nothing to do with Batman. With Star Wars.
Also,
Yeah, it's so
the
funny.
fact they couldn't get him back, so they got Christopher Walken to play just some random guy.
Yeah.
What was his name?
I can't remember.
Okay, we're getting off topic. We're talking about like the fucking like the
really
90s
shit
We're talking about
Batman
90s Batman now. All right,
The really
let's-
naff flame Batman films with Val
Okay.
Kilmer and George Clooney.
Star
So,
Wars.
so what are you saying? Best film ever, worst film ever?
It's a masterpiece. It's incredible.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's a good
Yeah.
film. It really is.
It's the annoying term where everyone's like, it's a Marmite film. You love it or you hate it, but like pretty much everyone I've talked about went, yes, it's all right. So it's like just completely skewers that theory.
Yeah, I mean, the people I know have been like, I've known people who, like you guys, who have loved it, and I know people who really hate it, and it's that they feel it's the worst Star Wars.
But they're
film.
wrong.
Yeah, your brother wasn't a fan,
But-
was he?
No.
There's always
So
there's a backlash, isn't there? But this backlash
No.
was instant. I think people will calm down and come to realize Attack of the Clones is offensive. This is not.
I think Ryan Johnson put it well when he said people were always going to hate it if Star Wars was ever going to become more than a continuous rehash of itself.
It's so incestuous as well. I'm so glad that Rey wasn't a Skywalker. Like, come on,
Oh,
just
God.
just move on from this,
Yeah.
guys.
This film.
Let the past die. I agree
I
with
mean,
that.
I see with not continuing the plot threads, but I feel like it continues enough. Or I just like the moment of
Well,
where
the fact
Luke
that Luke-
throws the sky the sword backwards.
The
lightsaber.
fact that
Yeah,
Luke,
John.
Luke was literally like a he was a myth now. That's
Yeah.
what he is. He lives as a legend to inspire like kids. I guess.
Yeah, I feel like this film is.
Try spinning.
There are some really great scenes in, you know.
Kylo try spinning.
Yeah, basically every Kylo and Rey scene where they're together.
That was
Oh,
genius.
so
idea.
cool.
And I think that
It's-
their minds are still linked at the end. I don't think
it's
that
been
was.
closed off.
I think Snoke was so confident in himself. He failed to see the power in Kylo. I think Kylo Ren and Rey are probably. I mean, Rey's got spunk.
Yes.
Anyway, I feel with this film it was that there were some great moments, there were some terrible moments I want to pretend never happened, and that means for me it's kind of.
There's two terrible.
Are you talking about the George Lucas
Yeah.
style dinosaurs?
There's,
lizard
weird
things,
dogs.
there's the George
They
Lucas.
are weird.
It's like, it was like, oh, that was worth it. And then she just like spends ages taking off the saddle. It was now. It's like, what?
Takes a
George!
shaking off
I
the
can't-
yaddle.
I can imagine him putting those lizard things in the film and then watching it and at the end going, I may have gone a bit too far on this one.
Oh, someone's gonna go into his house and just see a Ryan Johnson mask. They're like, wait a minute. For God's sake, George.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about the link, I mean, I think I'm probably unique here, but what I want episode 9 to be is just
Return of the Jedi again.
No, I want Revenge of the Sith, but it's the First Order instead of the Republic, and it's the Knights of Ren instead of the Jedi Order, and then you sort of follow Kylo Ren as the leader of this failing government. And he's sort of so alone because, you know, Hux isn't really a friend. The Knights of Ren aren't really friends. He's trying to contact Rey through this link, but she's blocking him out. And then you just see him. And you see it all from Kylo's point of view. You see him alone, and he's part of this. He's got this vision that he's trying to create, but everything he tries to do is crumbling and failing. And
I still think Obi-Wan standalone film, Gran Torino, but it's a grumpy old Ewan McGregor on Tatooine. He doesn't maybe you find a reason where he's just doesn't have force power.
And some Korean kid steals a speeder. Is that what you're
instead
saying?
of Korean kids, it's Tusken Raiders, and he's got to just go and fight off these Tusken Raiders just with his fists. He loses his force ability. Come on, give us that film. 18 raid like Logan.
I'll tell you what. I'll have that film if we see the corpse of Shmi Skywalker at some point. Shmi Skywalker.
I'm kind of sad that Star Wars Rebels have killed off Darth Maul, which will sound weird for people who don't know the whole stuff with that.
Sigh indeed.
But
they should have killed
Why
him at
was
the
he
end of
even
that
in there
music
to begin
video
with?
for Duel of the Fates. That's what I think.
what I feel a bit because I've seen Clone Wars, so I know the whole
Clone Wars
history.
or the Clone Wars? Very different shows.
The 3D one that is actually canon. Having seen that, there is a lot of bad blood between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, and it would be interesting to have a film which is their final showdown. Just Darth Maul showing up and finding out about Luke, and then being a potential threat to Luke. Because there's a whole lot of interesting thing about Maul at this point is he's just the way he's acting is sort of a bit out for revenge. But in Rebels, when he dies, you realise that the person he really wants revenge against is the Emperor, because the Emperor has used him all of Maul's life, and there's just a moment where he's being cradled in Obi-Wan's arm. He sort of looks up to Obi-Wan and goes, he's realised about Luke and goes, he'll avenge us, won't he? And then he just dies. And it's just that sort of moment of they've been fighting for revenge, and then sort of Darth Maul is all just no, this is actually...
People have the nerve to criticise Kylo Ren as a villain. Yep, so many people's favourite villain is literally a devil man with double-bladed lightsaber who does flips and has 2 lines of dialogue.
Yeah, but he does it so cool,
Two
Harry.
lightsabers is such a cool idea.
But
so is having a lightsaber with handles or crossguards even. It's
No,
why has no one done it since?
Yes, but Kylo Ren is just a moody teenager. Yeah, he's pretty cool. But Darth Maul
Kevin the
is
Space
so
Teenager.
awesome.
Kevin the Space Teenager.
On a related matter, off topic, you know in Revenge of the Sith, you know when just before Anakin goes to Count Dooku?
Yeah.
You know when he does do it, and Christopher Lee looks over, do you think that's his genuine reaction? Actually surprised that the Emperor used him for bait, or do you think he knew that he was going to use
Christopher Lee's
him?
a very good actor, and
He's surprised.
He's surprised.
Yeah.
He was sort of expecting this is just right. Fight Anakin a bit. I'm going to try and recruit him on side. So
because surely he knows that the Emperor, the Chancellor Palpatine is the Emperor, isn't he?
Yeah, he knows that. He's the only one of the Separatists who knows that. And that is him looking, going, oh my God, you don't need me alive. You're here. You're going to kill me. And
this Star Wars little
is going on for pretty much more than half of us two talking about.
That's what I was going to say. This is half an hour. We spent an hour and a half covering around 40 films.
Yeah, I know.
We spent 3 minutes on some films that are twice as good as
Well,
this.
some of the films are just Harry, did you like it? Yeah. Ethan, did you? Yeah. Let's move on. That was just our.
I thought that was what Suburbicon was like.
Why don't we slow down and talk about Power Rangers? I thought we
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
We didn't get enough in depth to Cranston's layered performance.
What is Bryan Cranston in that film?
I can't even remember. He's the sort of mentor guy they have. What's his name? Begins with a Z.
Zinedine Zidane.
It's not Zurg. That's from Toy Story, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Tanisha El Zorro.
Should we end this?
Star Wars is
We
great.
can talk about Happy Death
For
Day
this
for a bit longer.
podcast.
Harry, we can talk about Happy Death Day for a bit longer.
Because you're a bitch.